What is up, Kaiju Seekers? How's it going? Hopefully you guys are all doing well. I'm just going to be doing a little test here, make sure everything's going smoothly. Going live about 10 minutes early. We're just doing a few tests to see how things are going. Hello, Minecraft World. Hello. What's up, guys? So, I don't know if you guys have any impressions of what we're going to be covering today. I'm probably going to be letting a few of you guys on if you guys have time for it. But today's going to be a bit of a different thing because I want to try out something new. Something I've been wanting to try to do because it's a style of video that I tend to watch from time to time. But either if you guys want to listen in from here or there, or if anyone wants to hop on later, I'll be sending it to the Discord in a moment. Okay, so looks like things are pretty good on the stream side. So today, we're going to be covering a bit of drama that happened over on Twitter. The reason I want to cover this today is because I think it's pretty, for one, I think it's interesting to see, considering what many people here know as my personal tastes in films and regarding specifically Godzilla films. And I feel that people blew this way out of proportion in terms of how people responded to this certain take on Twitter from a recent trend that was happening. And then I'll probably pull up a few tweets. I'll probably share them here on the screen in just a moment. At least the main one for sure, because it was all very interesting to see. I have everything bookmarked here, so I'm just pulling through Twitter. So so that's what we're going to be covering today. The drawcast. Well, like I was telling you, Antonio, or Hoshi. I can feature some of your stuff, so if you want, you can shoot me in the DMs on Discord any art you want to feature, and then I'll have you hop on for a little bit, maybe either beforehand if that's best for you, or later down in the stream after we've covered a few things. But either way, send me some of your art, and either way, I'll still feature you on a future drawcast whenever you're best able, because I want to feature you on a drawcast, specifically your work, as I've done with some of the other guys. Minecraft, if you're still here listening in, I featured you guys and Zim, and the floor is open as well to anyone else who wants to join me for a drawcast, because that specifically is for featuring artists who are either my friend or who either I find in the community. So I'll probably be reaching out to several of you guys down the line for that. But if you have stuff you want to send, I'll feature them. And if you want to come on, just let me know in that same DM, and I'll let you have the floor for a little bit while we cover today's subjects. So yeah, shoot me a DM for whatever. Since in this space, I want to cultivate this small community with me specifically around, kaiju art, creature art, stuff like that. just because it's not something I typically see on YouTube with any creators outside of people here with us. Like Zim, he features stuff all the time. I want to do the same thing because I feel it's like a little niche that um, like there's art channels. So if we can be, um, I guess the best thing to like art channels. Like I see tons of art channels. I'm subscribed to a bunch of art channels. Storytime animators when they were a big thing. Yeah, I want to kind of do that, but for like the kaiju community. So if I can help cultivate that and spread the word of small indie creators, um, when will you send it? I'll probably send it in a little bit. Um, right now, yeah, I'll probably send it right now. I'll invite stuff. It'll probably be just a little bit of a feature before we get started with the topic. I'm wondering if Black has time to come on because I know Black Rooney said he wanted to, or he said he was gonna hop in some form. So if he shows, beast. So I am gonna send the link to the main general of Zim's Discord. If anyone who's there wants to hop in. So I just sent the link over for anyone who wants to hop in. But as I said, the main topic of this stream is going to be the drama that happened on Twitter. But, like I said, Antonio, if you want to feature some of your stuff before we get started. And hello there's. Welcome.
Hey, what's up?
Nothing much, man. How are things going?
Well, not really all that special. I just want to say thank you, and I'm glad that you are interested in showing everyone my drawings because I don't know, it's very honorable of me to be a part of this. So yeah, thank you for it.
Yeah, no problem. Because whenever we're on the Zimcast or anything else, I've noticed that sometimes you really want to, or I've noticed personally that you really want to share your stuff and want to know what people are thinking. So I just thought, I want to give you a shot of having the floor. Um, so like I said, we can still do a drawcast episode later down the line. But for now, if you want to feature some stuff or if there's like any a few things you want to show, I'll be more than happy to.
Well, can you show the audience like the newest drawing I made of Space Godzilla right now, if you will?
Yeah, let me see. Was it the one you had sent me before, or
Yes, yes,
yeah?
this one I said.
Sure, I will show that for you. Let me just share screen. Discord share. All right, I should be sharing the screen right now. So if you want to have the floor and explain your some of your stuff with this one,
Okay,
feel free.
okay, so as I was saying, the design for this Space Godzilla, I wanted to make him feel like my own version. Like, I wanted this Space Godzilla to stand out, if you will. I want him to like ooze like this almost kind of sort of divine feel to him, but while at the same time, I want to give my version of Space Godzilla to have a much more of a vengeful personality, if you will, something akin to like GMK Godzilla or the -1 Godzilla, if you will.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And like I always said, your art is very, very nice. I love your style.
Thank you. If you want to know, I take heavy influences from from either graffiti aesthetic to it or some manga artists I'm looking right now.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I've always been able to see that influence from your art. I love like the super sketchy and yet somehow fluid style that you have. It's very nice.
By the way, how is do you have any update on the Space Godzilla drawing that I asked you to do?
I haven't been able to get to it as of yet. I do have it like planned out. Um, it was super fun doing your Godzilla one. That one was really fun to do. So I'm probably gonna get to the Space Godzilla soon, since it does look super interesting. I sort of have to figure out how I'm gonna interpret your style into mine. It was kind of easier
I
with the Godzilla, but I'll
I
have to figure
mean,
something out with this one.
I can send you some influences that I took for my design, if you will, after the stream.
Sure, yeah. If you want to, feel free to, and I'll get to that as soon as I can. I should have time to do it within the week.
By the
Um,
way, if you're interested in the lore of this universe, it's basically like what if the events of the 1954 film took place in the early 2000s, and you basically get my universe in a nutshell.
hmm, that's interesting. That's a neat way to look at it.
But at the same time, you're gonna. All I can tell you is that my universe, my human casts are very, very over the top. So I don't know if you will like them or enjoy them.
Well, I mean, I've liked your stuff. From what I've seen, I know there's certain, like the other projects I've seen. I think your humans are really cool. Have cool designs, and I can see sort of their personalities from your design. So I'm sure I'm gonna like what you've got in store. So
So, are we going to talk about the main topic now?
sure, yeah, I'll go ahead and do that. So as I've said, oh, looks like we got some people joining in. So I will add them here before we get started. What is up, fellas?
Stand ready for my arrival, worm.
You don't
You are one.
understand, Rooney. This slop isn't yours to conquer.
You
I am
are
so
so
lonely.
lonely. Yes, you are.
Don't beat me to it.
My brothers and I have been watching Invincible, so I can finally join
No
in
one
on the
talks
fun.
to you. No one wants to be your friend. They think you're unstable.
Hey, that's my line. Don't steal it. Copyright Black Rooney TM LLC.
Yeah.
All right, all
I'll
right, all
split
right.
you in
So,
half and eat your own heart.
I think that sounds like a lot of bull.
So I went to watch
all
the How
right.
to
Are you
Train Your
sure?
Dragon remake.
Yeah, I saw
Pretty
you
sure.
just watched that. I saw. Any brief thoughts you want to
Did they
present?
ruin Skrill?
The Skrill actually didn't show up.
Thank God.
I would say yes, it's good, but significantly more flawed than the original. Not terrible. It wasn't what The Lion King was, where it tried so hard to be the original that it unironically made a mockery of itself and the original. But instead, it was as faithful as it could be, whilst also adding some things that didn't really hold the story back all that much.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
am just
I felt
ready.
a similar way.
I
One of my
am just
favorite-
Are you
ready
guys
with
talking
what.
about the new How to Train Your Dragon movie that came out?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
the remake.
Oh, okay.
I rewatched the original earlier, and I think that really gave me a perspective on just how I feel about the remake.
Yeah, because the way I see it is, I don't think anything can really beat the original.
Oh yeah, not even close.
Yeah, and the way I
Hey,
see it is like
Microquill.
the original
Let-
is like the
you let me
perfect
speak.
has the better telling of the story, whereas this is like an extended edition that you can like see through a new lens in a way. That's how I see it.
Honestly, the
Yeah.
way I see it, like the concept of remakes as a whole, a live action remix to animated movies, at that point just re-release the movie in theaters. Like, what's stopping you?
Yeah,
What
that's
about
kind
the
of
2005 King Kong movie?
That's a different story entirely, since King Kong.
Yeah, I'm talking animated specifically, not live action remix. That's different.
and even then, King Kong had what 70 years of history between the two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's a bit more justification with Kong 05.
So I'm just dreading with what's gonna happen in the second movie.
Exactly the same as the next, I hope.
I'm interested.
Yeah.
My biggest curiosity is what are they going to do to the Bewilderbeast? Because I have mixed opinions on the design philosophy of the remake.
So, Minecraft, what are your thoughts on the Red Death?
In general, or the remake version?
Both.
Okay, the original design I just generally think worked really well. I actually like the remake, especially. I had some qualms with it proportionally when I first saw the design in full, but then seeing it in motion, it kind of just clicked. Like, oh, yeah, it's literally just one big mouth, and it's meant to like eat the things alive. It's like it's not meant to move all that much, so it makes sense for the limbs to be a lot stubbier and things like that.
Yeah, I personally also really love the Red Death and the whole sequence. Because from the start, I saw this as, oh, this is like another kaiju movie that's coming out. And so that's the way I always saw it.
I mean, one could argue How to Train Your Dragon was always a kaiju movie, so.
Yeah, true that. But here, I think it really pulled off the sense of scale.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
My favorite word. Yeah, sense of scale.
It's
something that Wingard absolutely does not follow.
Hey, topical. Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
One thing I will say Wingard did do right in comparison to How to Train Your Dragon was the expression. However, unlike Wingard's films, the expression doesn't really feel out of place in both versions. Granted, I say that like the remake kind of did and didn't falter.
What do you mean by expression? You mean like facial
like
expressions?
how the creatures emote, like how you understand what they're thinking and acting.
Yeah. In the remake, it's more subtle.
I mean, with Kong, I'm kind of with Kong. I'm kind of split because on one hand he did do a good job on Kong, but on the other hand, it's also just due to the fact that Hollywood has mastered the art of making primates emote. So I don't know how much of that I can attribute that to
I would
Wingard.
still make the case that How to Train Your Dragon is more impressive because you have all of these this variety of body shapes, faces, skulls, and just general appearances that you have to make look and act very differently in comparison to the next. Something that I would say all three of those movies got right.
With How to Train Your Dragons, because I've seen the animated movies. I haven't seen the live action remake. I've heard mixed things about it.
Have you watched the TV shows?
I watched one, at least a few episodes of I think it was Writers of Berk. There was this one particular clip. I forgot the name of this guy, but there was this one dragon that he called it a flying comebacker, and that joke has stuck with me ever since I first heard it between me and my brother.
I need to rewatch the TV shows at some point.
Yeah, it was just
the Skrill is such a badass. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Like I don't know the name of this dragon in particular, but it was this one dragon that was like a boomerang type dragon that always came back to you. That's
Typhoomerang.
Yeah, Typhoomerang.
If you say so. I mean, I just know that guy just called it a flying comebacker, and ever since me and my brother heard it, it's just been an inside joke between the two of us for years. Yeah. But yeah, like with the How to Train Your Dragon movies, back to your point, I think they can get away with being expressive precisely because it's an animated feature film as opposed to live action, because in real life we all know that lizards can't emote the same way other animals can, and even then how much of that would be attributed to their ability to emote versus our anthropomorphizing of the animals themselves. Because like when a dog smiles, for example, how do we know it's like an actual smile versus our interpretation that it is expressing the happiness? Sometimes I like to believe that they are actually smiling as opposed to just our brains creating that pattern thanks to like pareidolia, or it's not pareidolia, but I'm calling it that anyway. how much I like to believe it's more than just our brains, but with lizards, it's a lot harder. I mean, the closest thing we can get to animals emoting, at least reptiles emoting, is just alligators and bearded dragons specifically, where we can see their faces contort in a way that kind of resembles a smile, but they happen so often that you can't really tell that it's a genuine smile of joy as opposed to just something that they just do at random.
Yeah, with reptiles, a lot of it is body language.
That's also
That's
why
what-
they
yeah.
didn't. That's also why they didn't just take from reptiles for How to Train Your Dragon's design work. They also took from things like cats, bats, or even birds. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, I was mainly referring to Godzilla and GVK because we mentioned earlier Kong in GVK. Like primate assets are always going to be good. Like the Planet of the Apes movies, the Matt Reeves movies, they raised the bar to the point where it literally cannot get any better than it is. I mean, we saw Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, what that movie did. It looked just as good as the previous movie in terms of like.
Hey,
as
while
the
we're on
previous movie.
the subject of it,
Hoshi, let Rooney finish, please.
No,
okay,
I
sorry.
finished. I finished.
Oh,
Okay. So while we're on the subject of How to Train Your Dragon universe, I gotta ask, what if the King Ghidorah was in this universe? How would the
They're
cast react to it?
Everyone is dead. Everyone would be very, very dead.
They would be very, very, very dead. You're
Extremely dead.
Yeah.
That's kind
You
of the
cannot
best
get
way to
better
put it.
than Ghidorah, the winged death
Like, you
of the
need,
golden
like-
death of Demise.
You need like so many bewilder beasts and so many red deaths to like even match.
Okay, but I'm just imagining that like Toothless leading an army of red deaths and bewilder beasts, as well as just other massive dragons into battle.
What was the name of that massive dragon that shot ice? I forgot the name.
Bewilder beast.
Oh, that's the. Oh, I forgot all the names, bro. I forgot.
There's
all the
also
names.
Purple Death and Green Death.
I forgot there were other.
Yeah, there's like different variants of like the red death.
How many
Yeah.
deaths are there? There's like a whole spectrum of colors.
It's like
Yeah.
they
Like the
have
Green
like
Lantern.
spin-off games and things. That's
Yeah,
what.
like the Lantern Corps. You got red lanterns, green lanterns, green deaths, red deaths, black deaths.
And then of course you have the white death.
Oh, we're not.
You mean the Screaming Death?
Yeah,
total
actually,
white death?
that would be a good stand-in.
Mhm.
But anyways, shall we get onto Twitter drama about Godzilla vs Kong and Gojira 54?
Alrighty. Thank you.
Oh,
Maya.
I thought that was. I was gonna ask about that. I thought that was just a discussion you were bringing up as opposed to just some drama online. Because I thought, what kind of comparison is that?
Well, it all started. Let's see. Let me pull up the tweets. Let me pull up the tweet, and then let's see. We can discuss from there.
I don't know. I've been a
Also,
bit
just a little bit of a coverage.
I've been a bit drama hungry recently, ever since the Garulia stuff.
We don't talk about that.
Animus did a good job.
All right.
Let's be honest.
He did. I think. Although I think he could have. I think he could have expanded on it a lot better. And wait, no, Vic. Oh no, Vic, dude. I think this just might be rage bait. This is rage
Oh
bait.
god, I know this. I know this.
Well, even
Yeah,
if
no,
this
it's
is rage
rage
bait,
bait.
it still caused a lot of rage. So you can say it was successful.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think the person that made this was being genuine. He just wanted to get a rise out of people, and it worked
Yeah.
clearly. But I don't think that's worthy of anyone's attention at that point.
Wait, no,
Yeah, well, I
somebody
still wanted to cover it.
They acknowledged that it was bait in the replies. Like that some people were saying that it was in the replies. I wonder what they were saying about that.
Yeah, like nobody in their right mind would ever think to make this claim in earnest
You'd be surprised.
because they wouldn't be in their right mind.
Well, here, let's get one thing straight. The main thing I want to cover is the idea of subjectively liking one film better than the other, regardless of the objective qualities of either films.
Yes,
That's
that can
what I want to
happen.
discuss.
Yeah, that happens. That's a thing that happens. I feel like we've talked about that for hours in other streams.
Yeah, just watch Gojin's recent stream. We talked all about that.
Yeah.
Not even that, but just almost every other stream in which this topic is brought up. I mean, we have hours upon hours and upon hours. Like,
Literal months worth of content.
Yeah,
about
I'm not entirely sure what's left there to say about the subject.
Yeah.
All right, but it's my turn now to host one of our streams.
Fair enough.
Let's see, because there's a lot. Because I know a lot of people got involved with it, and it just made me think like, because a lot of opinions were said very drastically. I think it was still blown out of proportion. Let me see. And let's see. There was this one.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah.
There's this one that was brought up. I feel that I am that friend that's too woke, but to be honest, I'm kind of worried about the number of people, mostly younger people, that seem fine with saying the original Godzilla is bad versus how GVK is better than it. And then, for one, that's something I would disagree with. I don't think GVK is objectively as good as the original 54.
What?
But I feel that I think it's still valid because I feel this way that subjectively I enjoy GVK more than 54. And would you think
I
that's a
mean,
valid
first
take
of
or not?
all, GVK isn't nowhere near
let him-
depressing, so yeah.
I was gonna. But Vic, I have to ask though, are they merely expressing good in a subjective way, or are they making a statement of fact here? Because I mean that they aren't really making a clear distinction, and so one would naturally default to that because when you say the word is as opposed to they think it is, like the thing,
Well, the thing is with the
there's a
original.
clear distinction, you know. Then
Well, yeah,
here
the
there
thing
isn't.
about with the original, even then, it was this is my opinion, and like we know, opinions can be both based on like facts or they can just be a subjective take on it. And then further, he does explain. Let's see. He does have some reasons for it, like with the visuals that he brought up.
I mean, that's not really fair comparing the visuals because this film is 70 years old. That's not exactly fair.
True, but I think subjectively it's fine to say you like the look of newer films as opposed to old.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
he's not saying like, is he? He's saying it is. Like it is like objectively. Like he's not employing any emotionality in it, is he? Oh, Metal Neck, my goat. He says, except the music junkie gets no love for based.
Yeah.
Based Metal Neck. By the way, I also noticed that in the site where he was posting his chapters for his Black Mass book, it's gone.
Yeah,
it's not
Webtoons took it down. Because
Why?
I think Toho jumped on him.
Oh, that sucks. Oh, that sucks. Poor guy.
Yeah.
It was such a good. I guess there are like other ways to, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, Black Room, can I ask you something?
Yeah, sure.
I know this might be very dumb of me to ask you, but how would you feel if you were to read like my comic of my Godzilla universe? Would you read that?
I mean, depends. Did you make it?
Well, I kind of want to, but I think you'll. I don't know. I think you'll probably be divisive of it, considering that it's very 2000s-esque.
I love 2000s-esque stuff. Go for it. Yeah, I'll read it. Like I think movies, especially visually, peaked around the 2000s to the late 2010s. Between those two decades, like visually, movies just peaked. So, and also just the overall style as well. I mean, thinking back to Matrix, and well, Matrix was released in 1999, so that's not. And then Final Wars, and then everything else that came afterwards. Yeah, sure, I'll take it.
All I will say is that if you like songs like the 3 Days Grace or the Skillet, then you'll probably like my version of the Godzilla universe.
Oh, I love Skillet. I grew up on Skillet.
By the way, listen to the song that he used as the theme, the "My Demons" by Fight the Fury. Dude, Antonio,
I think I've heard of it actually.
You have really good music taste.
They've expanded since I was a wee lad. God, why did I say
By the
lass?
way, did you know that the main singer Adam Cooper, he also collaborated the main singer Skillet to make a song called Wolf. I highly recommend it.
Oh, I'll definitely check it out. I haven't listened to a whole lot of rock music in ages. I just stick to like classical, just soundtracks and stuff. Like recently, I've been listening to the 2016 soundtrack of Berserk. Shiro Sagisu, my goat. I love his use of choir. Say what
Anyways,
you will about who will know.
let's get back to this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah,
you
so
can-
here, like, there's some things that he said in the replies that, like, he finds it more entertaining, and that it's in terms of mostly enjoyment. And then he says, "I like it more." That's about it.
Right. So it's merely just saying he subjectively prefers GVK over 54. He is
Yeah,
allowed to think that, but yeah, no, he's not saying
yeah.
so.
And
Yeah,
then,
even so, I guess it might not actually be rage bait then, but even still,
just
like he's
genuine
just
opinion.
sure.
Hey,
And then,
just a subjective taste then.
as I've showed before, there was the whole thing of like, let's see, people are saying it's not that serious. It's a phrase that's actively killed art and is making people dumber, not encouraging people to watch and experience things that challenge their worldview. That's why so many idiots these days. Totally not in relation to the recent drama. Everyone has a right to an opinion, as much as everyone has a right to public criticism.
What he
Um,
said, it's not that deep. I don't think there's anything wrong with the phrase itself, as opposed to just how it's been weaponized to diminish certain criticisms. Um, and I do agree with the overall sentiment behind it. I would probably word it actually no. I think the wording is just fine. The thing is, however, another post that we covered earlier, the one that said, oh, the young people say are comfortable with saying GVK is better than GXK. uh I don't think that's what the original post was saying, that it was factually better. However, I think it was also just a failure of just establishing that distinction from the get-go and just retroactively fixing that. I think that made that I think that this person clarified it a bit too late, because now this just exploded from what I'm seeing. So I think it was just a breakdown of communication. This is why I always say that one must be precise with their language. That's why I said it in Gojin's stream. Like, one must be precise with their language and try not to be vague, because then one might either misconstrue what one is saying or misinterpret it. So you have to be very clear about how it
yeah,
is that you're saying stuff, so that it's absolutely clear what you're trying to communicate, and it's impossible to misconstrue. And it also helps when talking to people like Anthony Gramuglia, because at that point it would be incredibly easy to catch any straw man. It would make it incredibly easy by both for you and the audience listening to the discussion.
Mhm.
so yeah.
Yeah, like I honestly, this is a very simple, it's not it's not as big, because I genuinely thought this was something that you were genuinely trying to, like, a discussion that you were genuinely trying to
Oh,
wait, there's two of you now. What? There's two
Yes.
Sorry
Vics.
about that. It's
There's
just that
two.
my
There's two Vics. We need to figure out who's the real one. GVK is not a masterpiece.
Mecha Godzilla's design is amazing.
98 is trash.
GXK.
Zilla's better.
There we go.
There we go. We finally figured out the real Vic.
right. Can you guys hear me good?
Yeah.
Only the real Vic would stay silent.
Oh, by the way, we're all on the topic of music. How would you guys have felt if someone like Steve Jablonsky did a song for GVK?
Wait, we are not on the topic of music anymore. We are way past that, dude.
We were.
Oh, I'm sorry,
we were
sorry.
at that.
We were long past that.
It's
That was
good. It's good. It's just my laptop died, so I got switch devices. But
Mm.
Fair enough.
What were you
Uh,
saying, Black?
Yeah, I was genuinely curious as to why you decided to have the topic be this, because for one, I almost foamed at the mouth the moment I saw the title, but as you know, but also just the overall, just the idea that 54 could be like, th- I'm genuinely like struggling to see where a comparison could be drawn, because it's not to say that it's impossible to compare something to another thing. You can always do that. It's just
Do we want to
there's
give this movie? You can
there's
go on.
yeah, there's just so little to compare that I'm trying to think of something, but I can't think of anything to compare uh GVK and 54 with. I mean, I was rewatching 54 and even King Kong versus Godzilla, because I was thinking, oh, maybe the subject of King Kong versus Godzilla is going to be brought up at some capacity. Um, which, by the way, it was King Kong versus Godzilla. There were a lot of things that I missed and realized that I missed, and those things were, yeah, they not good, not very good. But beyond that, how could even anyone even come to that conclusion that GVK could be seen as better beyond just the technical areas? Because the writing, no, 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 it's unthinkable. It's completely unthinkable. So
Well, the way I saw it is that even from like the comments he made further when people questioned it, it was always from a standpoint of he just liked it better subjectively in terms of how much enjoyment he got out of it and how entertaining it was. And I think that's a completely valid thing to think. And the reason I wanted to approach it is because I saw a lot of people who both were saying, "Oh, this guy's saying it's objectively better," and stuff, and he's so wrong. And then there's this other side that was like, "Oh, this is like you just saw, this is the death of art if you guys think it's not serious, you know?" Which part of me was
uh
like, it is
no,
not
no,
that
no, that what he
serious.
said, he didn't say it was the death of art. He said that the other post said that the idea that saying it's not that deep to diminish it, or arguments, is a way to kill discussion in art, is what he means.
Yeah. I believe I
um
did see another post that I was going to feature, but I can't right now. That says something like that. It probably wasn't that post we saw, but I think there's similar sentiments of like the discussion of art and how serious we need to take it when it comes to, subjectively liking one thing or the other.
could may I ask you this? Could you have inferred that it was subjective from the moment you saw the title of the post, or did you need the clarification further to be able to make that assessment?
I think it was like it was reasonable or it makes sense that people would think he might be talking objectively in terms of like comparing them. But given the fact that he stated that this is just his opinion, and knowing that opinions can also just be more so formed from subjective feelings, that there was no need to blow it to that proportion other than just asking what he meant or to clarify, which people did, and he answered.
But what I meant to ask, what I was asking is, could you have inferred that from the get go?
You probably could.
Probably not definitively, not completely, not entirely, just probably.
Yeah. I mean, if you wanted to know more, you could have asked, which people did, and he answered. That's the thing I'm getting at.
But that's precisely my point. Like, he needed to clarify. He could have said it. He had the freedom to. He had the freedom to clarify it from the get go, which doesn't take more than just a an addition of like 3 or 4 more letters. And he didn't. Now you could say, oh, he probably didn't think too deeply into it. Well, therein lies the imprecision of language. Like, he didn't think that he thought that his language was precise enough for him because he understood what he was saying. So
Sure. I think that's completely valid, but also I just still think that Like if you, and plus it was also part of a bigger trend of just doing this is infinitely better than this. Um, and within that, you have this, you can do that the format and just keep it simple. And then if someone wants to entreat, because I think that's sort of the point of like the whole thing with social media as well, is that you can inquire further about something without assuming bad faith and then going with it.
Yeah, but
There
this
was
is the but
something on
that
chat.
um social media. It's more often than not, it's not going to assume stuff in good faith, which is why you would need to be clear from the get go.
Fair.
And the freedom to do so is there, the ability to do, and it's not exactly a complex procedure either. It's like Dr. Giroux said in DBZA, is like it's really not that complex. Like it doesn't need a mechanized procedure. It's really not that complex. All you have to do is just use the right words, which are very easy to. It's a very easy thing to do. It's not exactly hard to do.
Mm.
Hoshi, you said something about chat.
Yeah, I sent something. You can check it out on chat.
Let's see. Okay, so
Which
you're
movie
asking.
handled Godzilla better, GVK or 1954? What do you mean by handled exactly?
I mean, in terms of personality, which one do you think was handled better in terms of like that?
It's I think it's kind of hard to answer that question, considering that Godzilla is the foundation itself, as opposed to Godzilla versus Kong being the outgrowth of said foundation. Godzilla is the establishment itself, as opposed to GVK, which it grew out from the foundation. So I'm not exactly sure how to handle that.
Hmm.
Like
You
if you
could
said
say
that
that.
if you said that about like any other movie, like Raids Again or King Kong vs Godzilla, any other movie, then sure, fine. But the foundation, I don't know.
The thing is,
I
I think
mean,
54 as the first movie really, hammers in the point of Godzilla. I think both the films treat him as like this force of nature, and that's his character. 54 goes deeper into his motivations than GVK would, where there it's just a desire to, hunt down this one thing that he's trying to track down. And then he's also trying to assert his dominance. But
But what do you
54 is just
mean?
like his
What,
film.
what do you mean by force of nature exactly?
Because, um,
Yeah. Oh, dude, microphone. You okay?
Yeah, that was me. That
you
was
good?
me just kicking like the support part of the table by accident.
Oh, dude, it sounded like a pretty big thud. Like you just fell off the chair or
No,
something.
it's good. It's good. It's
All
fine.
right.
Fine.
All right. And
You're saying,
then
Vic?
let's see. What I mean by force of nature is both in the sense that he is this creature of nature and that like he represents that. And also that he's somewhat of, I view him as like, he's not a character in the sense that he's the character in the sense that he's just like, he's kind of like how people describe the Joker, in that he is just this force of nature character, like that archetype, to where it's not really about the deeper motivations or how he's, or the motivation that he's written with. It's more so just how he acts in the story. Like that's how I see him in the Wingard films. Like he is this established character, and he is just going through the story, as this
I
character.
I don't follow. I don't think I understand what you mean by that.
Because like they don't really, because all of the moments in the Wingard films are sort of just display his, he has his goals, and then he's doing these things to achieve them.
But
Similar to how like,
that's every character ever.
yeah, but from, because I've watched videos where they describe Joker as like he is this force of nature character or force of nature villain, to where other villains will have like their backstories, their motivations, the deeper messaging behind them, whereas Godzilla just is.
I mean, with Joker, it's kind of hard because like the idea of Joker is no longer what the comics say he is, but rather what Christopher Nolan once said he was. So people's idea of Joker has become whatever Heath Ledger portrayed, and Yeah, it's kind of hard. I like to think that it might not actually just be the true essence of the Joker, but at the same time, he's just a perfect fool. I have a problem, several problems with not just Joker and The Dark Knight, but also just the Nolan films in general as to how they characterize, well, really everyone. But that's a separate subject. Comparing Joker to Godzilla as a force of nature. The thing is that nature is not inherently chaotic, and Joker is chaotic. He embodies chaos itself. So, I mean, unless you're saying entropy, in which case that's just outside Earth in the terms of like when we're talking about nature and specifically Earth, entropy would exist outside that bubble, and so although part of creation still, so if you were using that definition of nature in regards to entropy itself, chaos, disorder, then sure. But I don't see where Godzilla would fit into that in GVK, considering that he has a clear goal and motivation, even if it's inconsistent and he gets in his own way because the plot is not good.
Mm.
It's
man.
it's a complex subject to tackle, but
Yeah.
in calling him a force of nature would be like saying that a tornado purposefully targeted your house because it hates you, which is
Perhaps I
extreme.
could see
It's an
that.
extremely paranoid view of the world, like very megalomaniac, like all these things. Now, it'd be one thing if there was a character that felt that way, like they was so megalomaniac about Godzilla's rampage that it just assumed that, oh, everywhere I go, it's like Godzilla has it out for me. No, you just happen to be, in the path of destruction. It'd be one thing if
Yeah.
a film explored that, but that's not what happens. That's not what ever happens.
Yeah, I would say that's true. Um, because when I see Godzilla in the Wingard films, I always see him handled differently as he was beforehand. Because I think even like King of the Monsters like went more deeper into like who he was, and
Did
then
it? Did it though?
that
Oh, I think that might have been feedback from Hoshi's mic. It's okay. But I have to ask, like, did it though? Did it really?
in a way it did, yeah, because it also explored it through Mark's character. Um, and I think by GVK we sort of had this idea set in mind of who Godzilla was, and I don't think GVK or GXK explored any further than what we already had. And so now you just have him. He's this character in the story to where he sort of just does things, and there's clear reason as to why. But there's no deep exploration into like there's no deeper explanation. It's not that deep. He sort of
Um,
just is this character, and you see what he does in the story, and you're viewing it from afar like you would a natural disaster like a tornado. But in this case, it's a tornado with motivations and purpose.
um, with I'm trying to keep it, particularly, I'm trying to keep it specific to GVK since that's the topic. But
Mm-hmm.
with King of the Monsters, just to piggyback off of that, like in King of the Monsters, Godzilla's just there most of the time. Like, sure, we do see how people think about him, but we don't really see what he really thinks. We're just told,
Same can be said
oh,
about 2014, though.
true, and I would levy that's also a fault of the movie as well. I'm not gonna say 2014 is a perfect movie.
Hmm.
Um, so I would say something similar about 2014 as well. We're just told, oh, he wants this, oh, he wants that. Like it's hearsay basically. Is We're operating on hearsay most of the time.
Hmm.
Now you could say, oh well, it could be truthful. These are characters we learn to trust and get to know in huge quotations, by the way. But At least, well, maybe not with Mark and Maddie. We understand them perfectly. I'm kind of flipping and flopping with Emma. I'm going back because I've been rewatching the debates, and with Emma in particular, like I'm starting to see both Minecraft World and see Animus's points on Emma.
Hmm.
A little
Daily
bit,
Disagree.
yeah, just a little bit though. I still don't like her. Um, as far as villains go, she's really not as compelling as someone like uh heck, you know
The
what? He's
Joker.
I was gonna say what's his face from GVK, Walter Simmons. I don't think he's as compelling as Walter Simmons because Walter Simmons' motivation is actually pretty smart and pretty understandable. I mean, they're set up for conflict too. Like the idea that Bernie's wife died, could it have been for due to monsters? I would be inclined to say so. I mean, after King of the Monsters, yeah, there would be a lot of dead people. There would be a lot of dead people.
It's a damn shame that GVK follows none of that, though.
Yeah, yeah, it's a shame. It is a shame.
But Blackaroony, he said no one dies in these movies.
Who
Up from the
Wingard?
Depth said
You
that.
see? Oh, up from the depths.
Yeah, he said no
I'm
one
still
dies.
I'm still working on that video, on the unscripted video. I was trying to record footage of me playing Helldivers as like background footage, but I decided to keep using the Hell Bomb because I wanted to go out in a blaze of glory, but I kept forgetting how to activate the Hell Bomb, and I just kept dying to a bunch of Tyranids and kept depleting our resources because I kept dying, and I just said, you know what? No, I'm not using the Hell Bomb anymore. It's not worth it. Um, um, you video should be out in like a couple days. It shouldn't take me too much to edit. But anyway, um I lost my train of thought. Crap, I lost my train of thought. Something villain, something
Well,
something
Walter
nature.
Simmons was a better villain than Emma. That's what you were saying. Than Emma Russell.
Right, yes. Yes, I think mainly just in concept. In concept, he Walter Simmons is a better villain. In execution, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Um but so that's another positive I'll levy. uh King of the Monsters, it's not as good. It's Walter Simmons is not as executed as well as
Neither is
Emma
Ren
Russell.
Serizawa.
Ren Serizawa was a travesty. He was a complete and utter tragedy of a character because he barely does anything. He's barely, you could cut him from the movie and just say he's just a random engineer that got hooked up to the skull of Ghidorah, nothing would change. Like that's just a name now. You could even cut out the fact that he's Serizawa's son. Nothing would change and about the impact of his character. It's such a and in the interviews they talk about his character in a way that doesn't reflect what happens in the movie. It's so weird. It's almost as if
Yeah.
the
I
actors
would,
saw a
yeah.
completely different movie.
Yeah, because I
What are
think
your
a
thoughts
lot of it
on?
has to do with the cut content that happened beforehand. A lot of it was cut down.
I will forever beg. I will forever ask for a GVK extended cut that is just all the cut content, even if it doesn't improve the movie, just for preservation's sake.
I
So what are you
agree.
guys? So what are your guys' thoughts on Maya Simmons?
Maya.
Mm,
Hot. Absolutely hot. But that's mainly my bias because I love Asa Gonzalez as as an actress. My favorite role of hers was in Baby Driver,
Oh shit! I
and you
completely
can
Oh
forgot
yeah,
about that movie.
you can understand why. I mean, like I just had to adjust my pants every 5 seconds
I actually
when she was
first
on
watched
screen.
that like not too long ago, and
Baby
yeah, it's really
Driver's
good.
it's a really good movie. I love Baby
Yeah, really
Driver.
good.
Conceptually as well, just a guy that functions on music. He is literally me. Baby is literally me. He's just like me for real. I cannot. I love silence, don't get me wrong, but to function I need music. Like every time, like when I was in boot camp, I was just humming tunes whenever I could just to calm myself down. When in the was it the Forge or the Anvil? because there's hammer, there's anvil, and then there's forge. Yeah, it was the forge. We were marching back to the company, and everything was hurting. We were like rucking back to the company. It was several miles away, and we had to go through hills, going up and down hills. There was this one hill in particular, the Stairway to Heaven. That's what the drill sergeants called it, and like the ordeal was so like the few nights we spent out were so brutal that the Stairway to Heaven was just easy for me. But we were getting really tired, and it started to rain, which it's usually a good sign for me because I love the rain, so it's like a good omen. And so we were, rucking and rucking and rucking. There's this one guy that passed out, another guy passed out. We just kept going, and I just kept finding myself closer and closer to the front of the line because we were marching in a line to the side of the road so we can let other cars pass by. And once we were getting closer to the to the base, I just started humming the Attack on Titan soundtrack. I started humming the other side of the sea, which a lot of you might recognize as like the Warhammer Titan theme. The Footsteps of Doom, all that, and a battle buddy in front of me just told me that I had really good humming skills, and I just felt super, validated. Like, oh, he likes my humming, and he tells me to continue humming, and I just felt so happy. But then in hindsight, I realized, was he annoyed? Because he probably said that because he was annoyed, and he was just trying to put up with me, and he was trying to be subtle about it, and he didn't want to be mean. But yeah, no, it's probably like one of my favorite memories being in boot camp.
So
But yeah, I don't know how we got here. But yeah, Baby Driver,
okay,
me, Maya
hey,
Simmons, yeah, a waste. She was a waste, and it's unfortunate because I love Asa Gonzalez as an actress, and also as just, my God, that woman. It's always Latinas, bro. It's always Latinas. Like my personal Mount Rushmore of Latin American actresses: Salma Hayek, Asa Gonzalez, and I think that's it. Actually, no. What's her name? She was Sue Storm in the 2000s Fantastic Four. Jessica Alba, yeah. And God, what's her name? You know what? Never mind. We're getting off topic. Thinking about
okay,
Latina.
hey guys, before I go, I had to say something.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So yeah, I found that I succeeded. I passed yellow and orange belt from judo.
Oh yeah, congratulations on that.
Yes. That now you know that anybody wants to mess with you, you can fold their clothes with them still in them.
But before I go, do any of you guys know any martial arts?
I've studied a little bit here and there, like what was it, Taekwondo. I took a little bit of karate throughout my life.
I don't need martial arts. I got a gun.
I mean, it could be useful in case the gun breaks, or well, no,
I could turn thanks to my
you
military
still have a
training.
blunt force weapon in hand.
True. But thanks to my military training, I could turn anything into a weapon, even this gun.
Even a pencil?
A pencil.
So yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful day and happy midnight.
Have a
Happy
good one, man.
Father's
Thanks for
Day.
coming on.
Also, happy Father's Day to the fathers out there.
Yeah, and if
Yeah,
you're
I
fatherless,
forgot.
then boo hoo.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Alrighty.
Honestly, the fact that it's Father's Day kind of made the fact that I went to watch How to Train Your Dragon even more fitting.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't they use the marketing as well? Like, didn't they market that as like the perfect Father's Day gift?
It kind of, and I can see why. Cause like,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there was a trailer that said, the perfect Father's Day movie or something.
yeah, I know Ultraman Rising last year came out on Father's Day, which yeah, no shit, it's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
the
my God,
entire
I love.
movie.
I think I've been thinking about that movie recently. I should give it another watch. I've seen it like 5 or 6 times already.
Yeah, you should watch some other Ultra stuff as well. Like Ultraman Arc was honestly really good. So,
I started watching the original. I really liked how it looked because it reminded me a lot of the Alex Ross art. It looked like a live action Alex Ross painting, and I thought that was really cool. And just the design of Ultraman is just really appealing. It's a really I like looking at it. I like looking
Yeah.
at the suit. It's a very nice design, very
Yeah,
unique.
there's a reason he's one of the poster children for tokusatsu as a medium.
Yeah, it's very like it just looks like an Ultraman, you know what I mean? It's like the word was created specifically for this particular character.
Yeah, instead of an alternate dimension Superman.
I wouldn't even say that. Like, what do people think he's an alternate dimension Superman?
No, like I'm referring to the Earth 3 Superman concept.
Oh, right. Ultraman, the man who steals, right? Of course.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ah,
All right.
Godzilla versus Kong. Right. Sorry,
All
sidetracked.
right. Let me see. Let me see if we can use this as something to come in on. What do you guys think of people viewing films as either art or as just like content to enjoy? And this is specifically referring to a certain tweet I'm reading off of. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Wait. Could you clarify that? Like, what do you mean? Like the distinction itself, or people who prefer to see it as content for over just art?
Well, let's see. Let me see if I can read out the tweet and we'll see if we can further that. Casuals just refuse to think of films as an art form and only look at them as content to enjoy, and it kind of just ticks me off.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'll sometimes catch my dad watching a movie that I think is really good. Recently, I caught him watching this movie called KO. It's a French movie about a a wrestler. What?
French. Ew.
I know, but hear me out. It's about a wrestler who killed a man in the ring by accident, and he's living with the guilt of that. And like the kid, the boy who was watching the fight, it was like a mixed martial arts like fight, and he accidentally killed him. And he was watching the whole fight, and now he hates the guy for it, and so the guy just secludes himself. That alone is an interesting enough concept for an entire movie, but then the movie takes it to another level where the kid was involved with gangs and he gets kidnapped because of said gangs, and so the mother of the kid begs that wrestler to save him, and so the entire movie is just a quest to save the boy who hates him for killing his father. It's such an interesting concept. It's such a great movie. Like I really like that movie. It's so good. It's a little jarring in some areas, but like the first of all, the choreography as well, and the camera work that follows the choreography is really creative, and I haven't seen anybody do something like that before. So it was basically the camera twisting and turning with every punch and kick, making the fight scenes look super dynamic, and it almost looked like an animated fight. Like the fights looked very animated, and then there's the actual choreography itself. It looked professional, which I mean, yeah, I would expect it to be. It's a martial arts movie, and there's also like a little subplot of a cop whose brother was killed by the gang that kidnapped the boy, and she and the wrestler just team up to find the gang and take it down once and for all. She loses her cool because of the gangs taunting the death of her brother, and she loses her position because she committed an act of police brutality. Um, she has a lot of anger issues because of that, and so they team up and they find the bat. It's a really simple plot, but it's executed so well, and it genuinely surprised me. Like, damn, Dad, you got taste. And then during the New Year's, I caught him watching Godzilla versus X Kong: The New Empire, and I caught him having fun. So I tried my absolute best to ruin the experience because I'm that petty. No one in my family is allowed to like that movie. That's my general rule.
Did
Like,
did you
if
fling
you're a
him out the
stranger,
window too?
no, he's very heavy.
Oh,
I, but yeah, no, like that's just the rule. Like, if you're a stranger, I don't care. If we share blood, then you are not allowed to like GXK. I will raise my children better than
yeah. And then like
Feeling that.
because for me, I would say I think people really shouldn't see any sort of art form as like just content to enjoy and then scroll past. But
Yeah.
I think because I think like there's all sorts of different types of art. Like and with the case of GVK versus, Godzilla 54, I always see it as like it's comparing the Mona Lisa to the cover of Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man #1.
Hey yo, whoa, 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 whoa,
What?
whoa,
What?
whoa,
What, Blackray? What did I say?
whoa.
What did I say?
The cover of Amazing Fantasy is iconic. You take that back.
Why?
It's. I would argue. Actually, no, that's not fair. I was gonna say it's better than the Mona Lisa, but that's not fair. But I would make a better comparison in saying comparing Godzilla 1954 to GVK is like comparing anything made by Leonardo da Vinci to anything made by Jackson Pollock. That's a better comparison than something made by Stanley and Steve Ditko, because at least some Stanley and Steve Ditko made something coherent. You know?
Hmm.
What do you think,
because the
Minecraft?
thing here is you gotta think. Oh yeah, what do you think, Minecraft?
No comment.
Oh, that means I'm right somehow. Yay!
Well, the thing is for me,
Sorry.
because like, okay, imagine this, guys.
Just
I'm
talking
coming
to
at this
Steven,
as a form of praise, okay? Because I see them on the same level, okay? GVK and any like well-made like comic book cover. That's how I see that.
I mean, Vic, we've already established your general like opinions and standards as well as how you go about discussing media. So
Yeah, you said it yourself. You don't have that highest standard, but that's also kind of what bothers me as well. Like, I mean, as a writer, wouldn't you want your standards to be higher?
Well, for me, like my standards are only because like when I write and when I create art, my standards are: is this on the same level as what I would want to see in the other things I like? Because like I pull from like tons of influences of things I like. Like I like monster movies, so when I write a story about a monster, I hold myself to that. And
Right.
another
Yeah.
part of my standard is just like if because a lot of times if I just like something, like my standard will just be how much do I like that one thing,
But do you ever stop to wonder why you like it in the first place? Because there's always going to be like an actual like reasoning behind why you would like it beyond just a circular assertion.
Possibly. And oftentimes I do think of like, why do I like this? But there's another part of me that's like, I just like to let myself enjoy things. I tend not to think too deeply about what I want to consume and then therefore create.
Yeah, but like if you want to be a writer, then you would have to think deeply about what you're doing, right? So at that point, like you'd have to extend that same courtesy to other media, no? Like if you
True
want to make
that.
something like super duper good, if you want to make something like super duper excellently made and something you can be proud of, right? You would want to think about what you're doing and why you're doing it and how to do it as well as you can, right? So surely you would
True that.
extend that same courtesy to like
Yeah.
other stuff, right? Like for example, something Minecraft World said. I think it was in the Gramulia stream where you talked about Teen Titans and you were wondering why you liked the show so much.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I wish I
It
could have
was,
brought up. I wish I could have brought up like the other influence that inspires me. A guy named Film Freak. He one thing I want to do with my content is not just analyze it from an objective standpoint, but also the personal standpoint. How those objective aspects can and or do influence people from a subjective perspective. That's kind of what I want to like do as a bookend for the Nemesis essay. That mentality is heavily inspired by what Film Freak did, especially for me, both with the Owl House and Leica's movies, the stop motion films from Leica. He genuinely made those pieces of media significantly better by, well, for one, just putting everything into context, but also just intertwining the objective strengths and weaknesses of them both into his own personal experiences with them.
Right. Yeah, and that's precisely my point. As a writer, you would have to go through those because evidently somebody else will. Because like if you don't do it, then someone else will, and someone could like eventually like either take control of your creation or just completely dismantle it. So like, would you rather be your world's god or just let your world succumb to what's it called, succumb to entropy, basically? Would you rather have your world succumb to your will or succumb to entropy?
Yeah, I would say I definitely want it to be the succumb to my will. Because okay, so like from my perspective, I want to make stories that are like GXK, but I do also want to take what your feelings on it and improve upon GXK. That's what I want my stories to be.
Well, if that's your inspiration.
I mean, I took inspiration from Asylum films for an older story of mine, so it's not like it's not out of the question.
Okay, I get what he means. I was just gonna make a really mean joke, but yeah, no, it's you can take inspiration from bad movies. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't just downplay what I think about the movie to just feelings. This is just conviction. I know this is the case because I measured the events of the movie by causality and it completely destroys it. So and I think another thing too that I think we should talk about as well in terms of like GVK and 2014 1954 is which film is more important. I think that's a conversation, a topic of conversation I think we could tackle. Because I've heard I remember when I was in Sea Monster stream with Lau, God bless that man's soul. We were talking about the importance of GVK. Like at the time, GVK was super important because everybody was craving for a movie, you know, to get them out of the rut because of the pandemic. Like everybody was depressed, everybody was sad, everybody was mopey because of the pandemic. Then GVK came along and just swept everybody off their feet, and it was oh, thank you, GVK. Like I think people like GVK not because they think it's good, but because of gratitude more than anything. And I despise GVK precisely for that reason, because maybe I wasn't in a similar boat because I actually enjoyed the pandemic because I didn't like being around people at the time and I just wanted an excuse to stay home as long as possible. And the pandemic was the perfect excuse. And at the time, I just didn't care about all the people that were dying of the disease, even though my brother himself caught COVID. He got better. And then I got COVID later and I got better. Actually, no, I died, but I lived. And so
had to pull a Simon Pegg.
Yeah, so I guess that was hard. It was hard for me to feel grateful because the pandemic never really made me feel depressed enough to want to watch GVK to begin with, or like to use that as but it still felt for me like an event, you know. I was still excited to watch the movie. I genuinely thought it was going to be good when it came out. Now, granted, this was before I had any interest in media analysis and stuff like that. So my tastes were not as I guess polished. So, but still, like I was still excited. I thought the movie was going to be the best thing ever. And then I watched the movie with my family. Like I'm telling you, it was an event. It was like the entire world was like in unison watching this fight go down. This legendary, I say legendary in huge quotations, by the way. And this is a point that I'm going to bring up later. This matchup of the century, like Godzilla versus Kong, right? What else could possibly top that? And I saw the movie and I was confused. Like, wait, why is this bad? And then I slept on it. And the more I thought about it, the worse it got. And then I realized, sadly, oh, this movie's not good. I feel betrayed because I thought this movie was going to be good and it wasn't. And then when I got into media criticism, I started, looking to GVK because that was like a very impactful moment for me. Just the realization that the movie was bad. And then I saw people saying, oh, it's actually good. And then I started getting angry. And then I got angrier. And then I got even angrier. And then I started foaming at the mouth, barking like a dog. Like, no, this movie sucks. And then I just started hating the movie, just completely unbridled rage. So my hatred for GVK comes from betrayal more than anything, but also just revelation. It was like a divine revelation that this movie was never good and it was never going to be good. And then I remember something Lau said, which was that, oh, even if it wasn't good, you cannot deny the impact that it had on the world because it revitalized cinemas, right? It revived the idea of just going to watch a movie. And my thought process was, well, you could still have the same impact if the movie was good, right? And Lau was in complete agreement. And yeah, like it would be natural to assume that, but that is what happened. And I will always lament the fact that it required such a piece of trash movie to revitalize cinemas, because I just kept thinking, what even makes this legendary to begin with? Before the stream, I was watching King Kong versus Godzilla, and I remember something that you said, Minecraft World, saying that the matchup was legendary, and I was wondering to myself, what makes it legendary? What makes it legendary? And I, honest to God, could not find the answer.
I would say it's legendary in the meta sense, and this is something that that both versions of the film understood. The fact that it's the two creators of a genre, East versus West, coming together and clashing for the first time. Also, that said, King Kong versus Godzilla kind of had a similar thing, but more so with Godzilla himself, where that movie being the way that it was the catalyst for sending Godzilla into the franchise that he is now, and thus
into pop culture.
It made him mainstream, basically. Is that what you're saying?
As well as not just Godzilla, but also the general idea of the giant monster going at it kind of became a trope by that point. It's not to say other films didn't do it before. Godzilla Raids Again, obviously, but that film was kind of what cemented the giant monster and the concept of two of them going at it as a very consistent and prominent trope in mainstream media.
But that's the thing, the concept of monsters have always existed in myths, and just the title itself, legendary, has a lot of mythic weight to it. And so I just think that the idea of the battle between Godzilla and Kong being legendary
is film not our modern equivalent to the myths themselves?
They have the potential to be. They have the potential.
I wouldn't even just say
the
potential to be. I'd say, like, even if they can't come to a similar quality, there's still stories that impact people under various different circumstances, created under multiple cultural lenses, built off of events or experiences that we either have had or wish to tell.
And so then I'll ask you this. Would you say the movie Lord of the Rings, at least the trilogies, are just as legendary as the books themselves in the mythic sense? Because at that point, you'd have to ask, how much is that the movie actually putting in effort as opposed to just copying what it did? Kind of like how Zack Snyder did with Watchmen.
I would say they're both equivalencies, not just because not really because it's an adaptation, but because it was able to not only translate the source material well, but also do it in its own way, and itself was impactful enough to completely revolutionize how people view fantasy as a genre.
And I would go even further and say that they had a lot of technical innovations that are used to this day that the
Mhm.
film had to do, like the way they shot the dwarves, not the dwarves, the hobbits.
Mhm.
Well, actually, no, yeah, the dwarves too, because there's also Gimli. Is it Gimli or Gimli? I forgot. Uh,
I think it's Gimli.
yeah, Gimli, and then there's like Frodo and Sam, Frodo and Sam, just the hobbits in general, how they're
Mhm.
shot, like that takes some serious innovation, technical innovation. Like you could literally pause at any point in Lord of the Rings, and you could literally get a painting.
Yeah. Whereas for an opposing comparison, I would not say something like the live action take on The Lion King is as good as its predecessor because it fails in so many different ways, not only in translating the source material, but also in being its own thing and going a step further than before. If anything, it backpedals.
Just the kind of move. So basically, Lord of the Rings is what Tolkien would make if he were a film director instead of an author, and whoever made The Lion King is what would you say about that? Because it got me thinking about the Colombian adaptation of Breaking Bad, which copies everything the show does beat by beat, word for word, but
Thinking,
it somehow makes it worse.
I'm thinking of an analogy here. I don't know what would be the best analogy to describe what Lion King was. Well,
Bad.
okay, there's a lot of things that movie was, good not being one of them.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Because I don't like using the word legendary so lightly, especially when talking about the meta, because
Mhm.
the meta does not. Because what even is the meta? Let's talk about that. What is the meta in a?
Oh, to me, the meta is essentially pop culture. Because you're taking these two well-known icons in pop culture and you're putting them together. And with GVK, it was an instance of it happening for the first time in decades. And
Mhm.
when it happened the first time, it was a very big event in pop culture for that same
Mhm.
reason of taking these two things,
Not only that,
combining them.
these are two heavily iconic pop culture characters, characters that themselves not only stood the test of time, but defined even if a small section of it.
So the idea that they're known and beloved by others is enough to justify the need for a confrontation between them both, as opposed to whatever substance could be found in each individual story that would help complement each other well enough to justify
I mean,
such a confrontation.
the substance is, I would say, what is the byproduct of bringing these two together. That's what the original King Kong versus Godzilla was. It managed to make a justified reason and a proper substantial film out of bringing these two together by utilizing the meta in its own way. The film is a commentary on Japanese television culture uh, and that general aspect, the idea of the monster fight as a whole, as well as just trying to be its own fun film in its own right.
In the movie in King Kong vs. Godzilla, um, they refer to King Kong as like an evil spirit. No,
Mm-hmm.
I need to give that a rewatch.
The mammoth god or something like that.
the mammoth, yeah, the mammoth god evil. Why is he called evil? That's what I want to know. Because I'm pretty sure that I haven't seen the original King Kong movie, but I'm pretty sure he's not evil in the traditional sense. He's just an animal.
He's not morally evil. He's literally just an animal acting upon his nature and not even just an animal acting upon his nature. The fact that he's a primate, thus a social animal, makes every single action that he does in relation to Andero all the more natural.
I would say intimate. because he's a primate, right? Because he's already he's human enough in a way that makes him terrifying. Because
No, but like
Uncanny Valley.
No, but like
Uncanny-
by natural, I mean that it makes sense that a social animal that has been that doesn't have any other species of its kind would act the way that it does once given a social lifeline of some sort, whether forcefully or not.
In that case, I think both apply then, both animal and intimate.
Yeah.
But the thing is, narratively speaking, because like, what is Godzilla narratively in King Kong versus Godzilla? Because from what I'm seeing, it's basic. Because in the movie, they all treat him. Oh, this is a big monster, right? This monster is is infamous, right? They treat Godzilla as infamous, the same way you would consider Hurricane Katrina to be infamous, not a literal god of destruction, which is concerning to say the least. And then Kong is treated like an evil spirit, which we know that he's not.
I wouldn't really say it's concerning, considering Godzilla has been given an equivalency to both man-made and natural disasters. I mean, that's the entire reason he exists and his entire point in the first movie.
Oh, both natural and man-made. So
because he acts like an earthquake or a tsunami, but he was born from man-made circumstances, nuclear fallout, and the sun
bomb
underwater, the bomb.
Yeah. But that's precisely what distinguishes him from just a typical natural disaster. That man-made stuff is what sets him apart. That's what makes him special. So in that sense, he's not exclusively just a force of nature. He's a force of nature that's been manipulated into becoming more destructive than it would have been were it to be just left alone to just exist. So versus Kong, who's just an animal, just living on its own. Because that's a conversation I was having with a friend of mine. Because I don't think Godzilla and Kong really complement each other in the mythic sense. Like, I don't see how they truly complement. Everything that complements each other is entirely reliant on the fact that they're two iconic pieces of tokusatsu media, and them meeting is just like the crystallization of that media.
Honestly, I think it's the meta sense that really just makes the original King Kong versus Godzilla. Did you watch the Japanese version or the American?
I didn't watch the American version.
Just the Japanese version. I prefer the Japanese version.
Okay.
I prefer that one.
Okay, I've seen both. I honestly think, again, I need to rewatch the film, but in a meta sense, the fact that it is two iconic characters, even if they don't complement each other, I think that still actually lends credence to the film thematically, because of the contrast and the fact that, yes, that the contrast isn't exactly the point of the film, but in a way it's sort of like an extra thing that solidifies the film thematically.
But what I'm saying is that there is no comparison or contrast to be made. Like, you could literally pit him against I don't know, let's say Megaguirus, and it would have the same, like, you could if King Kong, for example, was replaced with Megaguirus, it would have the exact same level of substance, because they're both they're not even complementary, not biologically, like, not thematically. And I'm not saying Megaguirus is not.
I disagree on the thematic standpoint.
I'm not talking when I say Megaguirus in thematics, I don't mean like the movie Godzilla vs. Megaguirus. I'm just saying if you applied
No, I get what you mean. Character-wise, I disagree that they don't complement each other thematically. Both monsters are creatures born from tragedy in some way. Both creatures born from the loss of their own kind, and as such, acting in two very different ways once they meet humanity, as well as just being part of two very different cultural mindsets.
I think you're mixing up the MonsterVerse version with the original version, because like that sounds a lot like MonsterVerse Kong as opposed to like the King Kong.
The original King Kong is like The original King Kong, like that's the entire point. There is no other species of his kind.
If you look at the
Yeah,
originals of both
but
Godzilla and King Kong, both are these members of their last of their kind presumed, and then they do also have this quality of being these mythical beings because both cultures view
Yeah.
them as these godlike creatures.
Both of them
deities.
are interpreted in universe as godlike beings, worshipped by distant islands, and then brought into the modern civilization, one forcefully, one willingly.
I mean, the fact that you can even force a god to, displace itself to make him fight another god just kind of
Okay, but
makes
like
it question the idea of a god.
Really?
But that's not that has nothing to do with the That's just a
That's-
comment. It has nothing to
that's
do with
based
the.
off. You're judging it based off of a different interpretation of what the term God is.
Yeah,
Again,
no, but that's what I'm saying. I'm not talking
Yeah,
about. That's just
not-
a separate comment. I'm not.
Yeah, not
I'm
all
not using that to
not all
judge.
not all civilizations have the same definition for what would qualify as a god.
Yeah, I know. That's why I said it was just a separate comment. It has nothing to do with my argument. But my whole point overall, yes, it is true. Those civilizations see them as gods. That is true. Overall, though, like let's say, because I'm thinking, wasn't Kong in 1963? Wasn't that version fabricated off of both the narrative Ishiro Honda wanted to share and the meta understanding of him, or was it just canonically the same Kong as in the previous movie?
It is a different take on King Kong entirely, though it is implied to act like though it is under very similar, if not the exact same circumstances as what the 1933 King Kong would have been.
Because in a way, it's trying to
in
combine
the
the
according to the
storylines
events
or readapt it.
Because according to the movie, it's King Kong put himself to sleep with the red liquid, and they're taking him to civilization. That was okay. That event was very random. It was very random. Like it's not that it's like a plot hole or contrivance. It was just very. It's so strange. It's just strange. Like I don't know.
Well,
what
the
to call it.
reason,
Like I know why the
there is to
characters.
get Kong.
I know the characters' motivation to want to make him leave the island because this will boost TV ratings up, and this is going to be like the discovery of the century. Why did the natives? What? I mean, they seem to worship him. Why did they let? It's an entire civilization versus two dudes. Eventually, they're going to run out of guns. Why do they let him take?
They gave them cigars, though.
So it's a deity. You think you think cigars are more important than a deity?
Fair.
I think it was a matter of that they both worshipped and feared Kong, and that's typically true of every interpretation that the villagers fear and worship Kong.
Exactly, but that's what I'm saying. Like, why would they want him to go away? They worship him. They're essentially kidnapping their god.
I mean, like, if you're under the rule of like an evil tyrant or something, and then a group of people decide to take away the tyrant and leave you to do whatever you want, how would you react?
Well, then that's another thing. That's another point of contention that I have, like, with this movie in particular. Like, first of all, what makes him evil? Secondly, if he's so evil, why do they worship him? Because at that point, what does that say of the civilization? Is the civilization actually evil? I mean, we don't see them actively harming the actual people, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're evil. For example, let's say in Berserk, there was this one particular woman. What's her name? It was not her name starts with an Nina. She was in love with this one guy. She was dying of syphilis, but she was still in love with this one guy, and she took him down to the cave where there was a bunch of pagan cultists worshiping this the goddess Slan, and it was like a very demonic looking ritual, and the guy was reasonably freaked out. Nobody actually wanted to kill him in the moment, but they still wanted him to engage in this hedonistic pagan ritual that destroys the soul. How do we know that this particular tribe didn't want to do that? It's not like we spend enough time with them to actually get to understand what they actually want. Because
Mm.
again, if they call their god evil and they worship him, what does that say of that civilization? You know what I mean?
Mm. I would have
So
to
that
look back at specifically the King Kong versus Godzilla one, because I think I want to say that it's the like it's the it's the other main characters that say evil spirit. I'm not sure if the tribe ever referred to him as Kong as evil, but also it's I
What's
think
that?
both true of the 63, I believe, and the um 33, right? 33 version.
no, in the movie, the
No, no. What
tribe
I mean is
calls him evil, like the evil
what
mammoth.
I was
That
gonna say is that both versions, they all of the rituals and the worshiping is done to keep Kong from attacking Lamb. I think that's the context of all the rituals, the way they sacrifice a girl, similar to the way they sacrifice the girl to Godzilla and the legends of the original 54. It's all done to ward off Kong or Godzilla.
Yeah. Also, sorry, my mom had to drop in. She was just checking on me.
She can come in on the podcast.
Yeah, honestly, I think I'm hoping Zim can chill up because this discussion is right up his alley. Um,
I thought you were gonna say something else. um, but yeah, no, like, would they be okay with? Because y'all heard of the, that baby elephant effect, right? Where you tie a baby elephant up, and he tries to thrash his way out, and he can't, and then eventually he grows up into the chain, and then even when you take off the chain, the elephant doesn't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
If
Yeah.
that civilization lived that long under the rule of a quote unquote evil god, surely they would still be apprehensive to these two guys which only have guns, and it's an entire civilization of people with spears and flaming torches. They would still be extremely apprehensive to just letting their god be kidnapped, you know what I mean? And
Yeah, I
even
would
then,
say.
like, there's also the possibility that
Mhm.
they could believe that if they decided to abandon their god, that he would return with a fury sevenfold. Like, it was like a symbiotic relationship. Like, the god used the civilization for sustenance with the sacrifices, and then the civilization was allowed to exist. That sort of transactional relationship that they could have had, which seems to be the case in, at least in this movie, as well as actually no, not Kong Skull Island. That's not true. But regardless, um, and so that's another possibility that they could be feeling. The problem
Mhm.
is that we don't spend long enough with the civilization and understand their theology well enough to really make an we don't understand the theology of this particular civilization well enough to really um understand what the consequences would be, or at least
Mhm.
from their perspective, to them letting their god be displaced from his homeland.
Yeah.
And
And I think
so
it's interesting.
that comes
Like,
across as the
yeah,
civilization, that entire plot line, it comes across as just this needed to happen so that it could facilitate the plot of the fight.
yeah, I can sort of see that. I think it's interesting that I think the only film that ever like even somewhat addressed that is the 76 version, because like the arguments you're making is like are ones that the character of like Jack brings up in that movie. Like he says that basically with their god gone, their civilization is probably gonna fall apart. And
Really,
that's the only movie
in
to
the
ever
dub,
address that.
did
No,
you
no, in the 76 version of the remake of the
King Kong
De
vs
Laurentiis
Godzilla?
Kong.
That one, I
The
oh
one,
no, you mean the King Kong remake from
yeah,
that
yeah, the
year?
King Kong remake.
Oh, see, that's an interesting conversation to have as well. But again, that's what I'm saying. Like, even if you did say that, oh, this movie still treats Kong like a mythic deity because there's a cult, we don't know the structure of the cult well enough to really understand why Kong being their god would be significant. We just know that it is, and
Mm.
nothing beyond the surface. And it wouldn't even need to take that much screen time either. I would say like a 3 to 5 minute scene would be more than enough. I think the 1954 movie did a pretty good job in establishing sort of the quasi theology of Godzilla, of the Odo Island people, where he's basically a dragon in the Western sense, where he's just you sacrifice to him to ward him off, right? But that practice became of sacrificing women to Godzilla, young girls to Godzilla became so barbaric, and so to evolve from that, they just have a dance now, right? To ward him off. Obviously, it doesn't work, and that's something I actually never thought about. The dance doesn't work. He shows up anyway. Now you could say, well, it could have been the bombs. Sure, fine. At that point, what would the people of Odo Island think if they found out that the bomb was the one that was responsible for upsetting Godzilla? And what would they think once they find out that Godzilla was reduced to bone? That's another thing. Like their own god just reduced to bones. Like what that entire culture just if their entire identity, cultural identity revolves around Godzilla, they would fall apart. They would have a severe crisis of identity. That's something to explore. So in a way, when it comes to mythic weight, I think even though it's not something as mythically, powerful as something like Lord of the Rings or Berserk, I think if we were to have like a mythic meter, I would place Godzilla 1954 over King Kong versus Godzilla, because that implementation of myth and religion is glossed over pretty quickly.
Would you watch a movie called Gandalf versus Guts?
I would not watch a movie called Gandalf versus Guts. They're not even. They're what? Where would that
You don't think that's
rivalry?
legendary?
Okay. Rooney, now I have to ask you, how would you compare something like Godzilla versus Gamera on a matchup level? Like, how would you compare those two, mythically speaking, in comparison to King Kong and Godzilla?
I would say it's slightly more mythically resonant because Gamera would embody some just goodness in general, right? Just the well-being of humanity, whereas Godzilla would then stand in opposition to that. That's just like a classic hero versus villain, and I think that's what would make Gamera a good foil, as opposed to someone like King Kong, because King Kong is such an outlier. He doesn't even qualify as like a hero or villain to Godzilla, or vice versa. Their wills are nowhere near in conflict or in unison at all. They might as well not even know that the other exists, and the world would spin around just the same, as opposed to Gamera, where he's actively, seeking the safety of protection of humans, particularly children. And so Godzilla would stand in opposition to that. And although the confrontation would be a simple hero versus villain story, it would still I would say slightly more mythically resonant. Well, not mythically resonant, but just okay, maybe not mythically resonant, but because again, I don't like using that word when it comes to fiction, myth. I don't like using it lightly. I'd rather be reverent about it. Show some reverence to the concept. But I do think that Gamera is a better foil.
Okay. I was just curious because I do for the most part agree. I don't disagree. I don't think that King Kong is a terrible foil for Godzilla. I think you could somehow make it work. I mean, I'd say the 62 film got it right, and was able to justify it, but that's me. But yeah, I would generally argue that Gamera as a character is far more fitting of a foil than Kong, especially added onto by the fact that there is precedent for such rivalries in both of their franchises.
Right. With like the thing is that with Kong, you could say that it could be possible. The thing is that you would need to fundamentally change either one's I say fundamental. I don't want to sound redundant. You would have to fundamentally change the characters in order for their wills to come into like conflict. You know what I mean? You would need to fundamentally alter their wills and their desires for them to come into conflict, which is why you would need to like be extra careful as to how you characterize them and how you have them behave throughout the plot. So,
Mhm.
and then Godzilla vs Kong, the 2021, it's an extension of that basically, and it builds upon that an already broken foundation, and it makes it worse. Now, because again, like don't get me wrong, like for all its fault, King Kong vs Godzilla is like the least bad movie. Like it's got its problems, but post 54, it's one of the less weaker entries. But GVK is just.
I mean, you've gone on record just to call it the worst Godzilla movie ever made. A sentiment I disagree with, but you do you.
The I will say, like, I agree that like the anime trilogy and 98 are pretty high up there in terms of like deserving that title, but but you could argue that at least there was an intention to be coherent. The GVK was in direct opposition to coherence, and then GXK doubled down.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what makes it worse. Just the attempt at being coherent versus the direct opposition to coherence.
Yeah.
That's why
Right.
I honestly don't think a director's cut is going to help much. I think it's just going to
I
make
know.
us understand
I know. Again, just for preservation's sake, I'd still like to have the footage. It's like,
yeah, me too. Yeah, I agree.
Just like when Lost Media happens, it freaking sucks. Like, just
yeah. So like 54. It's I don't want to keep calling it because it's an amalgamation of myths. You've got Prometheus in Serizawa because Serizawa was inspired by Oppenheimer, and Oppenheimer's called the American Prometheus. Makes sense.
I mean, I'd say
Godzilla.
I'd say a better comparison would be Frankenstein, but yeah, they all come to the same conclusion. It's like
Frankenstein is also kind of Promethean in that sense.
Isn't that the original title?
Yeah,
the
Frankenstein, a modern Prometheus. That's the original. That is literally the title. So saying
I didn't know that.
Saying Frankenstein would be comparing it to Frankenstein would just end up at the same conclusion.
Yeah, so it's not a bad comparison. And then Godzilla's just the Western because the concept of dragons in the East is very different from what we have in the West. That yet somehow Japan looped back around into embodying the Western idea of the dragon.
I think a part of that is because of the Western influence of the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms.
And yeah, and that alone is just also the dragon,
as well as the general perception of what dinosaurs and prehistoric organisms were viewed as at the time.
Yeah, Beowulf. Like you got Beowulf and the dragon, right? And then you can go even further back. The Leviathan in the Book of Job, the dragon with the multiple heads in the Book of Revelations, the snake in the garden, which seems to be the root itself.
Not intended.
So it's like it's these branches all being part of the same tree. And so I think that's what grants Godzilla 1954 that mythic weight to it. It's hard to describe it as such, though, given that on top of the fact that, yes, I understand the film is very dated. Sorry, it's dated. It's 70 years old. It's going to be dated. As well as just like the visual, just the visual effects. It's kind of difficult to convey that. That's why I think -1. I think -1 is. Look at us bring up -1. We got to bring up -1.
I mean, you can't not talk about it in a discussion in a modern day discussion of like Godzilla
I
legacy
think
and things like that.
I think that's why -1 is such a better remake than Shin in that sense, because Shin is kind of it's been described as like the events that led to 54, but in the modern world, like in modern times, like instead of the nuclear bomb, it's the
It's
nuclear
Fukushima.
Fukushima power plant disaster.
and it's Fukushima and dumping of nuclear waste in universe.
Yeah, and then the earthquake and the tsunami.
Yeah.
Just multiple disasters. The tri disaster. Just
And the
Japan's
government's
9/11.
response.
Exactly.
Which itself kind of parallels the 3 bombs.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? That gets me thinking. Why hasn't Russia made their own Godzilla type character? I mean, Japan has Godzilla, Korea has Pulgasari.
Freaking India beat them to it.
Wait, they did?
Yeah, Gogala.
No way.
Yeah, look it up.
Yeah,
No.
I think I heard of that one too.
How do you spell it?
Gogola. It's a lost Indian kaiju movie.
Gogol. Wait, no, that name sounds familiar. That's not the thing you showed. Oh wait, no, it's not. Huh? And this came from what's it called? It's the origin of the monster was Chernobyl.
No, I think it was just a generic sea monster.
Oh, but that's what I was asking. Like, why doesn't Russia have one because of Chernobyl?
Yeah, I mean it's right there. So
yeah, I mean it would be cool. I mean America's got Cloverfield with 9/11 and
yeah.
I mean there is a nuclear disaster that the U.S. has gone through, but I don't think it's as like infamous as Chernobyl. So
yeah.
And then just in case, Sea Monster SA says he may join us soon.
Yay.
I mean if it continues after a while, then sure. But yeah, no. My overall point is like GVK, in the grand scheme of things, in the mythic sense, it doesn't have any sort of weight to it. It's just there because whenever we call it a legendary battle, it's merely just the conception of what we understand to be a legend, a modern legend, a postmodern legend, to be more specific. Yeah, no, like that's not. They call it the matchup of the century, and exclusively, like even in the meta, like I have to ask, is popularity enough to warrant their status as legendary, or is it their influence? And then you would say, oh well, yeah, it is the influence. Okay, then, the giant monster. You talked about the impact that this movie had on the concept of the giant monster. I would argue that although it pushed it to become a genre, a popular genre that people always want to tackle at some capacity, it also kind of set it up for failure, at least King Kong vs. Godzilla in particular, because then, for one, the quality of Godzilla movies in the Showa era in particular, it didn't get better, and then the Heisei era was very hit or miss, and the Millennium era.
I wouldn't even say it didn't get better because I mean we had a bunch of good movies, especially early on. Like genuinely well crafted films. But listen, if you're gonna pull another every Godzilla movie sucks on me, I will find you in person.
Oh, I'd like to see you try. But no, listen, I'm talking mainly just narratively, but not thematically, just narratively, because I'm not unaware that the themes exist. I'm not unaware. I'm mainly focused on the plot. But yeah,
even I disagree on that front, but I think that's a topic for another day.
Yeah. We can discuss you being wrong in another stream. But with the Heisei in particular, with the Heisei, it's very hit or miss, a lot more misses than hits. And then the Millennium, I can't gauge the millennium. I don't understand what the millennium is, honestly.
It
Like
was
I
a
tried
series.
gauge.
It was a series of attempts to get off the ground that kind of didn't do that.
Well, have
Yeah.
you watched them all or a few?
Mm. I mean, I don't think I watched Mega Gearus, to be honest.
No,
You
you're
can take
not
it or
or
leave
really,
it.
you're not really
or
missing.
Tokyo is
Okay,
yeah.
have you seen Against Mechagodzilla? Because versus Megaguirus
I-
is sort of the prototype for that one.
Yeah. Yeah, but I need to give it a proper analysis
Well, here's the
because
thing. Everyone
the
loved
fights were so
Against
cool that I
Mechagodzilla.
didn't. What was that?
Well, everyone loves Against Mechagodzilla. My favorite one of the two is Tokyo SOS.
That was
I
one of
for
my-
the longest
Do with
time
that what you
refused to
will.
watch Tokyo SOS because I thought it was a TV show.
Wait, you're serious?
Yeah, I thought it was a TV show, and I'm like, what? Godzilla's a movie, not a TV show. I'm not watching this.
Hilarious.
Good thing we
Well,
have Monarch.
How did you feel when you learned about the animated shows, like the Hanna-Barbera one and the '98 show?
I didn't. I liked the '98, but I didn't really recognize it as Godzilla. I just saw, oh, it's the thing that they call Godzilla, but honestly, I don't care. I like it. The Hanna-Barbera, however, I hated it. I really hated it.
Axor, my beloved.
Mainly because Godzilla, for one, Godzilla's. I think I just hated Godzilla in that the Hanna-Barbera, everything about him, from his design to his atomic breath, it's literally just fire. And then the roar. I hated the roar so much. You couldn't. Listen. The roar is the most generic, lazy thing I've ever heard.
It is quite literally
It-
just a guy roaring.
Roar!
Yeah, I would believe you said that was a sound clip from the show.
If you take that and replace it with Aaron Yeager's Attack Titan roar from the AOT Japanese dub, it would legit sound better. And I don't like that. I don't like the Japanese version of the roar. So that's saying a lot. Like, I know it's iconic. And in some instances, it does sound pretty good. Especially in the later seasons. But I don't like it because it's a very similar philosophy of a guy going roar. That's why I prefer the dub, because it sounds more
I personally
demonic.
have fond memories of the Hanna-Barbera show. I grew up on it alongside this Godzilla '98 the series. I always had a fond look at it. I actually met Tom Cook, I believe, who was one of the animators on the show. So
Vic, I have to ask you something.
yeah.
Do you deliberately listen to my takes on stuff so you can just actively go against them to piss me off?
No,
Because I feel like you're
honestly,
doing this on
no.
purpose. I can't
I
prove
honestly
it.
don't, man.
I
honestly
can't
think
prove
you
it, but
guys-
I know
me
you're
and me are
doing it
just
on purpose.
Opposite ends of the spectrum. We're just opposite people, man.
It's like I think you're doing this on purpose. I can't prove it. I can't prove it, but I know you're doing it on purpose.
This is fun to watch.
It's like
It's a lot. It takes a lot to get me mad at something, or to say I hate something, or
Yeah.
even dislike something.
That's why I wanted to ask you. Like, I think Zim asked you, like, because the way you see movies, I have to wonder: is it even possible for a movie to be bad?
I mean, he stated he
Oh,
didn't like La La Land, so
Yeah, but like that's
I don't like it 'cause,
But
you know-
that's a musical. That's like the
Hey!
lowest.
Hey! Not all
What?
musicals are bad. Not all musicals are bad.
Not all musicals, all right. There's this one.
All right.
I had a friend. She showed me this one musical called "The Guy Who Hates Musicals." It was pretty fun,
All right.
I guess.
Let's see.
'Cause
Before we
I
hop
thought-
off on that, I actually just want to quickly introduce Sea Monster says
Better late than never.
Who's Sophia Gigante?
That's the Sophia.
Oh, the penguin. Oh, the penguin. Right. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't
yeah.
recognize because I thought Gigante was like a very kind of. Really, that's the last name you're going with? And
Well,
then,
I mean, it was her mother's maiden name. She wanted nothing to do with her father, essentially. So
fair. I mean, fair enough. But even still, that's a very strange. Like, if you didn't know any Spanish, that last name would be nothing to you. But I know Spanish, so
well,
yeah.
it's Italian, so in this case,
I know Italian too.
and
And plus, if you know Spanish, you know Italian, so it's not that hard to make that connection.
yeah.
All right. How
Boy,
much have
what do
you
want,
been
Gojin?
listening in on a Sea Monster?
I mean, I pretty much got home. I literally just got done eating. So I had just been listening to pretty much the parts up to like something about like themes or what have you. Like basically like the end of that particular discussion. That I kind of been listening since then.
Mm.
So yeah, so I kind of missed out on quite a bit apparently.
Well, yeah, the whole stream started out basically going over a little bit of a Twitter drama that started, and it was due to someone saying they liked GVK more than 54, and so the stream is basically just an overall topic discussion on that. So, and then
I
we've
mean,
gotten into a lot of different stuff on that.
Did the person say that they say like, oh, GVK is better than 54, or did they just say like they enjoyed it more despite recognizing that 54 is the better movie? Like
They said that it was down to just enjoying the film and liking it more subjectively.
Yeah, but that was very retroactive, though. That was retroactive. He didn't say it in the moment.
Because he originally said, in my opinion, oh, this is my genuine opinion. That was what he said.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people had different
yeah.
takes on it.
Yeah, because opinion in this case, like there wasn't a distinction between whether it was an opinion in the sense that, oh, this is just a position that I have, or an opinion that, oh, this is entirely subjective. Because sometimes people don't define how they use the word opinion, because sometimes they just assume that people are going to assume that it is just a subjective thing, as opposed to just being a position that you're holding. And sometimes people will actively flip the definitions to attack someone else, and then they have to clear themselves up in retrospect. And my argument was, you should probably clear yourself up before you even make that kind of argument. Just establish what you're saying, and not doing what Gojin does, which is say objective and subjective every 5 seconds. Gojin, I love you, buddy, but
saying it every 2 seconds. So
love you, buddy, but you can't keep doing that. It gets redundant.
You're getting away with it.
Like I feel like, because like whenever you say it, like the moment you say it, people will automatically know what you mean. Like there are words to describe objective and subjective positions. We have words for that. We don't need to keep saying objective and subjective all the time.
Yeah. We can. Yeah, I guess it's like you use like certain like terminology, and people would just be like, "Okay, so you're being objective."
Like if
here
you say,
without needing to say
this is
objective.
good, yeah. If you say this was really good, and then you say I like this, that automatically tells me everything I need to know. That does the job pretty well.
Bro, that's literally what I say, bro, all the time.
You say like more. Okay, you started saying objectively and subjectively more often. I've noticed that.
Have I?
Yeah, you have.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a very perceptive person.
I mean, as far as like the where I'm sitting, as far as like the lens in terms of like just looking from outside in about this whole thing. In a certain sense, like I can to a degree, I can understand why someone would pretty much like, if they're like in a certain mood, they would rather watch something like GVK over 54. But and again, it's obviously person by person basis. Really, I mean, your mileage may vary. Like if you just like you don't want to watch like there's like certain moods you probably would have, and that is like as subjective as you could possibly get. Really, like if you're in the mood to watch something like 54 or -1 that are like really dark, sort of human focused dramas, that with Godzilla being with Godzilla kind of like representing something like more than just being a giant lizard, then yeah, those films will essentially like sort of fill that sort of sort of like that mood. Or if you're in the mood for something that's just ultimately just monsters going smashy smash on each other and what have you, then I can understand something like GBK fulfilling that. But yeah, even then, if you ask me, I pretty much would still stick with something that is of at least a better writing quality, like something like GMK or or the Kiryu duology as like in a couple examples, just the name off the top of my head, where it's like, maybe where it's like those arguably are a bit more thematically rich than obviously something like GVK, but they do ultimately they're definitely less akin to something like 54 minus one, because they're much more action oriented sort of films. It's just that they kind of strike a better balance. But
I have a question to you, Minecraft World in particular. Who do you think does a more meaningful versus match better? Okay. Let me formulate my question better. In Death Battle, who do you think makes a more which episode of Death Battle do you think makes a more meaningful versus matchup than Godzilla versus Kong?
Sorry, you cut out on my end.
Okay. So I was asking if in Death Battle, which episode do you think makes a better versus matchup than Godzilla versus Kong? Like a more meaningful matchup.
Let's see, Godzilla versus Gamera, but also I think going off the list of Death Battle episodes, honestly, Kyle Rayner versus Simon the Digger is a pretty meaningful one if you actually stop and think about it.
I don't know anything about Kyle Rayner other than his wife was stuck in a fridge.
White Lantern. And also he went through a very similar circumstance as Simone. Self-doubt after losing a loved one, pushing and going down a path that he really shouldn't have, but ultimately gaining indomitable human power and overcoming his weaknesses in order to save the rest of the universe, multiverse.
Wait, but that wouldn't put them at odds with each other, right? That doesn't sound like something that would make them be at odds with each other.
Considering Simone's power, yeah, you probably could, especially considering the entire plot of Gurren Lagann hinges around the fact that humanity will inevitably create a spiral nemesis, and that will come into conflict as the end of the universe. So you could have something like the White Lantern Corps dealing with that, and they realize the cause. They realize, oh, humanity is trying to stop this as well, and that's where they put their differences aside. And there you go.
Oh, is that how? Because I haven't seen the episode. Is that how it ends? Like a draw?
No, it doesn't end like that. Simone beats the hell out of Kyle.
Oh,
Simone wins.
Because
himself after that.
Everything I know about the White Lanterns is just the fact that they preserve life. That's really it.
Yeah, that's kind of things. Like from a story standpoint, you could absolutely make something like that work. Like if we're just talking a crossover or even a versus match, from a story standpoint, excluding the necessity of death, you could make that matchup meaningful in a lot of ways.
Like they both preserve life, but Simon's very existence and his attitude towards just existence in general, it threatens death in the long run.
It's dangerous enough for the Lantern Corps to take notice.
You know what? Sure. That's actually, I like that, actually. That's pretty good, actually.
Yeah. You should watch the episode, by the way. It's so good.
I've been tempted to.
Please.
I've been tempted to.
Later, their next episode is going to be Tomcat versus Wile E. Coyote.
I was gonna say something. I'm not gonna say it. I'm rooting for Tom.
Yeah. Also, later down the line, they've announced Godzilla vs. the Hulk is going to be happening.
You cut off a bit.
Which one was it? Yeah, you're roboting a little bit.
You might be able to work out something with that.
I heard something
They
along the
also
lines of
announced that
Godzilla. Yeah, you cut off a bit.
Godzilla versus the Hulk.
Godzilla versus
Oh.
the.
Godzilla versus-
I mean, I'd love to see that for just purely for the power scaling. Like, which are they using? Like Immortal Hulk or?
I think just general composites for both, like they did with Gamera and Godzilla back then.
Because like there's Planet Hulk, World Breaker Hulk, Immortal Hulk, Entropy Hulk, the new one.
Yeah, and another one they've announced is Gru versus Megamind. So
I could see why they would be at odds with each other. I guess. I mean, the more animated the character is, the more versatile they are. I think.
yeah, I'm hoping
so-
they do Destroyer versus Iris.
I want to see Destroyer versus a boss from Elden Ring.
Yeah. Honestly, Destroyer versus Iris, you could make that one work from a story standpoint, because like Destroyer's entire thing is destroy everything in his path, and Iris is going after one specific person. So
Just for pure spectacle, I want to see Skull Knight versus Skeletor.
I think they want to do Skeletor versus Lord Zed from Power Rangers.
Interesting.
I'd watch that.
Honestly, Skull Knight would absolutely dominate Skeletor. Like, there's no competition. I mean, Skull Knight literally sliced through causality itself with his with the sword of actuation. Like, he ate a bunch of Behelids, vomited them onto a sword, turned that into a sword, and cut open Slan's womb.
Yeah. Another one that I want to see is Poe versus Monkey Kid. Those two aren't characters that would naturally be at odds, but like you could justify it with like a sparring match going haywire,
Yeah. Or Saitama versus
like they did with
Femto.
Poe's other episode.
I want to see Saitama versus Femto. Because or maybe actually no, Saitama versus Slan. Because like let's say Slan is trying to seduce him and Saitama's just indifferent, like, no lady, please leave me alone, put on some clothes. And then she gets mad that he's not, reciprocating, and so she tries to force herself on him, and Saitama literally punches a hole through her stomach, and then she gets mad and actually starts getting serious and starts fighting him, and then Saitama has to land multiple punches as opposed to his one punch, man. So that would be a fun fight.
They just fought with Popeye, so yeah.
They did that with what?
Saitama versus Popeye.
Oh, they did Saitama versus Popeye?
Yeah.
Huh. I guess Popeye won.
Yeah, Popeye won. He turned Saitama into a bunch of eggs. He turned Saitama into a bunch of eggs.
I remember. Yeah, no, I did see that.
Did they do Jigsaw versus the Riddler?
No.
I'd love to see Arcade versus the Riddler, because on top of the fact that Arcade is just a very underutilized villain, he's essentially Marvel's Riddler mixed with Chucky mixed with Jigsaw. So
yeah, I mean, I kind of went with Jigsaw because that would be the more recognizable name.
I mean, that is the more popular one that people have said for Riddler. So
That's true, but I want to see how Riddler maneuvers Murder World, because Murder World is like a staple of Arcade, because that's his what's it called, his domain, you know what I mean? That's where he's at his best when he's in Murder World. That's where he's at his most powerful. He doesn't have any powers in particular, but he's such an interesting villain conceptually. Just a villain called Arcade. Just the fact that that's the name of a villain. It's really, I like it. Okay, I like it. I like Arcade.
Yeah, it's like a really cool sort of match. Yeah, like Jigsaw versus Riddler would be really interesting as far as like the mind games, what have you, in terms of like.
I know the closest one that they said they wanted to do is Light Yagami versus Columbo.
Oh, I can imagine Light Yagami being absolutely annoyed by Columbo.
Yeah,
you want to kill him.
Yeah, one that I want to see them do for the pure spectacle is Adam West Batman versus the Japanese Spider-Man.
That'd be good. That'd be interesting. I'd love to see that.
Especially considering
shame-
you could actually escalate it to a mech fight, because Adam West Batman does have one.
Adam West Batman borders on just having Toon Force.
Yeah. Granted,
might as well.
So does Japanese Spider-Man. It's like
Fair
it's like
enough.
Toon Force versus anime powers. You kind of have to justify it.
It's a shame that we can't, but I would love to see a matchup between Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee. But he's dead.
Yeah.
Bruce
Lee.
Rest in peace,
Yeah,
Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee, not Jackie Chan. I'd be very upset if Jackie Chan was dead.
Jackie Chan's not dead yet.
Don't
He
jinx
better
it.
stay alive.
Don't jinx it.
He better stay alive for like at least 100 more years. That man was my childhood.
That man is
Jackie
a
Chan
legend.
Adventures, you know.
My favorite movie of his, and like the very first one that I saw as a kid, was The Tuxedo. The death of the main villain always disturbed me because he was just eaten alive by flies, and it was the most disturbing thing I've ever seen as a kid. Like, so the fly, okay, so there's like this venom thing that it was in a jar, and then the dude controlled a bunch. I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly, but there were a bunch of flies that were chasing after it, and they pushed the venom down his mouth into his throat, and then the fly started eating him from the inside out.
Oh, jeez.
Keep in mind, this is a spy thriller comedy movie.
Okay.
I don't know how we
What?
got. I don't know how we got to that point, but to where a man was eaten alive by flies. But that happened. I didn't like it.
Wow. That's insane. I
And-
mean, did you know that Double Toasted did like a 2-part bad movie roast on The Tuxedo?
I did not know that. As a matter of fact, I don't hear a lot of people talk about that movie. I don't remember if it was good or not, but I remember as a kid, I loved the hell out of it. I owned the Blu-ray. It was like I kept watching it whenever I wasn't watching the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I was watching that one.
Damn.
You had good taste back then.
Don't shut up, Vic.
What happened to you?
I got better.
He started ranting about Godzilla movies.
Yeah. You missed a lot, Sea Monster. I think that
I bet. Yeah.
because like we got into like myth, and I don't know. You kind of needed the context. So I don't know.
Yeah,
what we can
like
say that hasn't been already said.
How one determines the status of myth or legend, and the dichotomy between Godzilla and King Kong from a thematic and character standpoint.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Because I don't believe that Kong is based off of how he's understood versus Godzilla. I don't think he's a good enough foil. I think to make him a foil. I don't think it's impossible, but to make him a point, to make him a foil, you'd have to fundamentally change one or the other. So, I mean,
Yeah.
there are ways to do it, but the fact is they haven't done it yet. So until then,
Yeah. It's like it's one of those things where, like, it's understandable why people would want to see like Godzilla versus Gamera, because Gamera kind of seems a little easier to kind of like match up with Godzilla without fundamentally changing too much of his origins.
not just easier, but it just makes sense. Like Godzilla's a villain and Gamera's a hero. So by that very logic, it's a very you would be able to create an extremely simple plot that just does a job well enough that just creates a much better hero villain dynamic than Kong.
Or
Because
even
Kong
just
is
like,
very-
or at the very least, like, if you pretty much even want to, like, try to do a little more complexity, like kind of like what the Heisei Gamera movies sort of did, and
Yeah.
what have you. Like, you could have Gamera be at worst like an anti-hero versus Godzilla, who you could maybe say like anti-villain potentially, maybe just due to the fact that he's kind of been like he was sort of like this prehistoric creature that got like that just had like this terrible circumstance that made him into like something far worse.
Isn't an anti-villain just a guy that does good things for all the wrong reasons, like a really, really bad reason?
I think an anti-villain is just kind of more of a. I mean, I've kind of heard that people say like Sophia Falcone, like it'd be funny mentioning that because my little text thing there, but it's like people kind of like described her as like an anti-villain of sorts.
No. She's done bad things.
Can it be
She's a
like a
villain.
No,
villain
I
with
getcha,
some
yeah.
sense of morality?
Like, because an anti-hero in the traditional definition of the word is just a person that does really, really bad things for morally justifiable but still kind of iffy reasons. I think Guts fits a, because if you look at people like Punisher, they're going to call Punisher an anti-hero. He's not an anti-hero. He's really not. He's killing the worst of the worst. He's eliminating evil from the streets. He's killing like the worst of the worst, and he's placing that burden on top of him, on top of himself. That's not what a villain does. And so an anti-villain, from what I've heard, at least like the literary definition, is just someone who does good things for all the wrong reasons, for extremely, I think traditional Deadpool, not movie Deadpool, but like traditional Deadpool is more of an anti-villain because he does good things that could be perceived as good for all the wrong reasons because he's actually just insane.
Yeah. Yeah, and keep in mind, I pretty much I don't agree. I personally don't agree with the whole thing of Sophia Falcone being an anti-villain because yes, she does do a lot of pretty bad things, throughout that show. It's just that the show does like such a great job of even making you question like which one is worse at the end of the day, Sophia or Oswald. That it's like
Anti-hero, not anti-villain.
Yeah.
I completely forgot that I watched The Penguin. The Penguin was awesome.
It was, yes.
I need to watch it at some point. I think I'll probably get around to doing so once we get word on the Batman Part 2.
I don't think you need to wait for the Batman Part 2 just to watch The Penguin.
No,
The Penguin's just a great
figured
show.
It just give me a little bit more incentive personally.
Yeah, The Penguin is what villain spin-offs ought to be.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't make you, it makes you understand every facet of a villain's life and then just understand why they're a villain, but you still hate them. Like the show will make you hate the Penguin. It will make you want Batman to go give him an Arkham finisher. You want to see the Penguin get his comeuppance by the end. I was going to
ask for comparison on Breaking Bad, but I realized Breaking Bad is not.
You want Batman? You're pretty much hoping for Batman to turn Penguin's bones into paste. In the next
by the
movie,
end of the show, you're going to like. At first, you're going to like him and think he's charming. At the end of the show, you are going to hate him.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good.
It is.
I definitely need to watch it.
It's awesome. I never thought I would ever feel this way about a villain. Like everybody's just trying to make the villain like morally, what's it called? Morally justified in their goals, or just trying to make you sympathetic. I have never felt so much joy in hating a villain as I did with the Penguin. And I think that's just one of the major strengths of the writing of the Penguin, that they just successfully made you like it pulled out defeat from the jaws of, how's the saying go? Defeat from the jaws of victory. How's the saying go? I forgot. It help me out here. It's defeat from the jaws of victory.
Something like that.
It kind of tricks you into thinking, okay, well, maybe he's not a bad guy, he's misunderstood, and then the show just betrays you in a way that you should have seen coming, but you didn't, because it plays with your emotions. But the evidence that yes, this was always going to happen was there from the very beginning.
Yeah, the evidence was all there. Everything just kind of lines up from the start. You just
chose not to watch it because you're a decent human being.
Yeah.
You just wanted the best out of people, and then it snatched that from you. It's like the narrative is purposefully betraying you and hurting you, it's hurting you basically. The
It
narrative is
hurts you
hurting
in the best way possible. You know, it's just
exactly.
like, I'm glad
That's
that
what
you
the
did
best
this.
narratives. That's what the best stories do. They make you either laugh or they make you cry, but they make you feel something. You know what I mean? In that sense, right? Especially when it comes to character writing, like it will feel rewarding for you to hate a character because I'm so tired of feeling pity for characters in general. Um, I want to like a character and also just hate characters as well, but also just not hate them because they're stupid, but hate them because they're evil. But the narrative just says, yes, this person is evil and you should hate them. And that's what the Penguin does. It tells you, yes, hate him because he's
Yeah.
an evil bastard.
Yeah, and he's the main character. He's it's technically the protagonist.
He's
you
the
know?
protagonist, but he's not
Which
the
is
hero.
even he's not protagonist in the sense that he's the guy that we're following, throughout for
all
at
the
least the
other
majority of the
characters,
show.
all the
Yeah.
other characters, they're also villains, and you also want them to, see meet their doom. But at the same time, you think, wait, if Penguin wins, things will be worse. I shouldn't want this, but I
Yeah.
do for some reason. And then when he actually gets what he wants, you just think to yourself, what have I done? This is horrible. I don't want this. And then you keep
Yeah.
watching it, and it gets worse and worse. Not
Yeah,
in quality, but in terms of moral reprehensibility.
Yeah, it would make you question like whether or not it would have been better off if the other person won as opposed to him.
It makes you think I want the protagonist to lose, basically, and that's how you write a villain. That is the best way to write a villain.
Yeah. Yeah, needless to say, just go watch the Penguin. Us just saying, talking about the things that it does right, even for as vague as we are, it's just it's better if you just experience it,
I always heard good things about the show. I personally never got to watching it. It was one of those things where I personally didn't see much interest in it. Because while I did like the Batman movie, I never thought about me wanting to see a story of the Penguin. And then hear you guys describe it, I think it's a little bit more interesting to me now. I
Yeah,
might
I
check it out
mean,
sometime.
Generally didn't have the time. I just generally forgot to get around to it. So
Yeah, that's fair. You would, before the show came out and came out before people talk about it. On the offset, you'd think that this is that's interesting. All right, you're doing a spin-off series on a Batman villain. Colin Farrell was certainly a standout in the Batman, but I don't know if before going in, you'll just be like, all right, maybe, hopefully this will be worthwhile. I don't know if it'll be but who knows? But yeah, the fact that it turned out as well as it did, it's mind blowing in a sense.
If only there was Godzilla villains that made you hate them as much as you hate the Penguin. That would be nice.
Mm.
If only there was Godzilla movies
What kind
that
of
was
villain would that need to be for?
Destroyer
Yeah.
or
That's
Ghidorah.
probably true that.
Those
I think
two are the big ones.
still
yeah.
waiting. Zim's in the chat, by the way. Still waiting on that Godzilla Batman comparison stream.
Mm.
Oh yeah, it's been like a year.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not in a hurry. I'm not in a hurry, but I actually forgot about it until you brought it up.
Yeah, I was watching some older podcasts, some older Zimcasts recently, and I remember Zim brought it up a couple times. So I think last time Zim mentioned it on cast, I think it was the Adam Does Movies -1.
I even kind of talked about doing a Godzilla and Transformers sort of discussion stream pretty much at some point, but yeah, there's no real rush for that either.
I was gonna do the why versatility matters thing, but really at this point I just have no interest in talking about that subject even further.
Yeah. Godzilla versus Kong and 54. I don't know what else is there to say in regards to what we were
54 is
talking
good.
about. Yeah,
54 is a good
GVK
movie.
is terrible.
Yeah,
Um,
kind of it.
and yeah, it still sucks that my video isn't out yet.
What?
On GVK,
How much work have you done on it?
too much for my sanity.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Like,
As for myself,
it's to the point where sorry, it's to the point where I'm starting to lose interest in making it, but at the same time, I have talked more about GXK than I have GVK, so
So you
I
still
feel
have
like
something to get off your chest.
yeah, like the flames of spite are they need kindling. I need someone to make a video saying that GVK is actually pretty good, so that my spite meter
Hey
goes
man,
back
that's
up.
why
And
I'm here. That's why I'm here.
you're not doing it
I'm
enough
your
for me.
foil. I'm your foil. I'll become your foil, Black Baroni.
You don't. Okay, for that you would need to make a video.
All right, I'll make a video.
Good. I'll be waiting to tear it apart.
Ugh.
And then
yeah,
yeah.
there's this one video by Up from the Depths that I saw. I didn't watch it, but I saw it on his channel while I was getting a screenshot of his channel for my upcoming video on his GVK video. It was called like the importance of GVK, which is which is part of the reason why I started going on that diatribe on myths and legends in regards to Godzilla. It's part of the reason why I went on that subject, because at that point, like the only reason why anybody would think that is legendary is just it's not only just purely meta, but also just the fact that these creatures are popular. Like a better versus matchup that is in universe, like if we're comparing exclusively the monsterverse version with something else, like something that's in universe, a more meaningful matchup would be something like Serpico versus Guts, because, and spoilers for Berserk, Serpico has been so the tragedy between Serpico and Farnese is that they realize that their blood, at least Serpico realizes they're blood related, but their relationship is so much more than blood. They love each other like actual like lovers, but a Serpico abstains himself because they're siblings. But Farnese at first was like in love with Serpico. Part of it fueled by her sadomasochistic tendencies, and her masochism is actually very well explored, not in like a gratuitous way, but in a way that helps you like understand that this is not normal, this is not okay. It doesn't glorify it, basically. It just helps you understand where it originated from and why she loves pain, why she loves inflicting pain, and why she loves setting things on fire, because it makes her feel powerful in a world that makes her feel powerless. And Serpico always being at her side, you know, almost being an enabler to her addiction, to her lustful addictions, despite being a member of the church, and one purely out of nepotism, by the way, given her family history. Like it made her Serpico made her feel loved, basically. That's why she loves Serpico. But they're siblings, so they can't do anything about it. But Serpico doesn't want to tell her that they're siblings. She just wants to let her be happy. And so when Guts meets Farnese in the Conviction arc, or more specifically the Lost Children arc, her entire world just goes upside down. It's turned upside down, and it changes Farnese for the better. Over time, it makes her humble. Over time, it makes her like realize, oh, the foundations of the church aren't faith, it's zealotry, Pharisaic zealotry to be more precise. And so she starts following Guts, treating him like a saint, and eventually falling in love with him, despite Guts' affection for Casca. And that's what makes it tragic. And Serpico takes note of this, and in his mind, he's always preparing for the time he has to defeat Guts because of the events of, I think it was either Fantasia or the Falcon, the Empire of the Falcon of the Millennium Falcon. I keep whatever the name is. You know what I mean. You know the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's always preparing because the Beast of Darkness is always going to take control whenever Guts wear his Berserker outfit. Because people typically treat the Berserker outfit as a power up. It's not. It's the complete opposite of a power up. It hurts Guts more than really anything, and it threatens to slowly kill him. But also, it's an opportunity for the Beast of Darkness to turn him into a literal animal and start killing everything in sight. And so, because of that, as well as Serpico's wariness of Guts and Farnese's relationship and his protective need and his need to protect Farnese at all costs, that puts him at odds with Serpico. And Serpico is like an already skilled fighter. He's like Levi Ackerman if he wasn't as rageful basically. And eventually Farnese at one point is not destined, but she's placed in an arranged marriage that she placed herself in so that she can save the entire group, Guts and Shirkei, and I like calling her Shrike, but Shirkei is I think it's the correct pronunciation. And Isidro, like, to protect all of them, her newfound family, she accepts an arranged marriage, and to not interrupt that, Serpico is forced to fight Guts. That, I think, has enough setup, enough mythic weight to it to justify the fight. And Serpico is incredibly smart about where he places the fight as well. He knows that Guts uses the Dragon Slayer as a crutch. He knows that from the very time he fought him, like, he purposefully led Guts down in a very steep cliff where if he used the Dragon Slayer to try and swing, he would literally fall to his death. That was completely intentional. And then in their second confrontation, I can't remember if it was Fantasia or the Millennium Falcon arc. He led him to catacombs with a bunch of pillars. If he swung the sword, it would destroy the pillars, and the debris will eventually collapse and bury him. So he's very smart about the placement. Whereas if you compare that to the mythic buildup of Godzilla and Kong in the MonsterVerse, it's hindsight. Basically just saying, oh, the apes and the Godzillas, they were in a war. Why were they fighting? Who cares? We don't actually get to see it. We don't actually get to see the consequences of the war. We don't actually get to see why Godzilla would ever hate Kong. And we're just told by cave paintings and just people Eileen saying, oh, they had an ancient rivalry without ever justifying it. And we're just supposed to accept, oh, if they meet, they're going to fight. Why?
Yeah. We don't even get like a sequel to like retroactively sort of mend whatever holes that the first crossover films sort of left behind in terms of why Godzilla would hate Kong and what have you.
You know what? Instead of Godzilla BC, you should make a Godzilla versus Kong BC, whereas Godzilla and Kong are not the titles of the specific characters, but rather the titles of the actual species. We needed a Godzilla versus Kong BC to truly establish that. But we didn't. We're just told, oh, this, that, and the other. And the entire reason why we have it is to lazily justify the fight's existence. But really, it's not enough of a justification.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, suffice it to say, obviously, Godzilla 54, it's a great movie. And it's definitely one that I love a lot. It's definitely up there, top 5 of favorite Godzilla movies ever made, as well as the best ever made. And Godzilla vs. Kong, it's a movie that I can see myself enjoying watching on a casual viewing, but in terms of just comparing the writing between the two, it's like it's almost not even fair to GVK at this point. It's almost kind of sad actually, because 54, it's just they're not even the same. Like GVK's
They're
not even in the same league.
ballpark. No.
They're not even the same ballpark. It's almost like GVK is like is like 54 in terms of writing quality is like it's like a whole other planet from GVK.
Not even in the same universe. And by the way, I would like to bring attention to the fact that my favorite Mexican besides Brayden is here.
Hi, Zim.
Hello, Zin.
Hey.
I'm back. I was just doing some things.
Welcome.
I am returned.
Look who's late to the party now.
To be granted audience once more.
Look who finally showed up.
Upon
who's
my
back?
name is Zim,
Back
the
again.
first Elden Lord.
His mic is off, but he's still not
You
saying it.
ask that I present myself. Oh, well, you know my name. I am Zim, Zilla's son, and joy I take in Cremuglia blood.
I have been reminiscing way too much on just that whole thing.
For
Yeah.
context, that was a reference to the
Twilight
introduction
of the Gods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that show. It's
I need to
Tim
watch it.
99.
Is that the Zack Snyder Norse mythology show?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
it's
okay.
terrible. It's
But that-
terrible.
need to watch it.
It is terrible, but
But I
that
love it.
line goes
That
hard.
line,
I'm
it
sorry.
It does. And I also like the
take
voice actor.
in Jersey blood.
I love the soundtrack. It was composed by Hans Zimmer. I can't find
Ooh.
Thor's theme anywhere. Thor's theme is just as good, if not better, than the God of War Ragnarok Thor theme.
I also
I
think
want
that
to hear-
generally like how
Ooh, that's
They
yeah,
betray
Hans Zimmer
Thor's
doing this.
abilities
I
is
did not know
pretty
that. That's pretty neat.
yeah.
Um,
No, it's really neat.
What were you saying, Zim?
I was gonna say that like I generally like how they portray Thor's abilities, not necessarily how he's like portrayed as a character, but how he uses lightning to his advantage and moves around the battlefield is super cool to me. I love that.
My favorite scene in the entire show, you would think, is how that one Aphrodite woman just literally just saw God, or like Odin made
Oh yeah, Odin
she
makes him see
made Odin.
Jesus. Yeah.
You would think that's my favorite scene, but no. It's the scene where the main character and her husband turn a girl lesbian.
Bruh.
They just she has never seen or had any experiences in bed, and before she can even try either one, she just after the experience she goes, you know what, I think I want your wife now.
No, it's mine. You can't have it. No, don't do it. It's mine.
The best part, the husband is like, you know what, yeah, that's my wife, I get it. I get why you would want her. I get why you would want her. I get it. He just laughs about it. He's like, yeah, I get it.
That's
She's amazing.
beautiful.
That is the most ridiculous thing I have ever seen. I love it.
Oh,
It's
God.
so weird. It's so bizarre. Like,
That
this
is
has happened.
so funny. Oh my
This is-
god.
Is this how they're born? Is this how lesbians are made?
oh man.
Just in-
She just wasn't hit with the factory reset yet.
the factory reset. But yeah, Zim, have you been like watching recently? Everything?
Of the stream?
Yeah.
I was at work this entire time, so I am
Oh.
very late to the party.
Well then,
On a Sunday?
Yeah. I'm big man on
On a
campus on
Sunday?
Sundays.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
well let's see. Let me ask you
Mm.
this. Did you see any of the drama pertaining to
Yes. Yes,
what was
I did.
happening?
I
What was
did.
your take on it?
I think a lot of people need to be posting more receipts if they're going to make broad sweeping claims. That's just me. Because like the fact, like, some people are obviously taking it a joke when they're saying like we need a fandom purge, when they're saying people prefer GXK or GVK over 54, and then there's other people who are like, oh my gosh, you obviously mean this to be true, but then never provide receipts as to like the direct people they're calling out as actually thinking this. And it feels like everyone is trying to snipe at another person instead of directly calling out people who believe this, even if they've never said anything like regarding the drama. And I would say, like, in my humble Zim opinion, it is okay to prefer GVK or GXK over 54 because it is purely going off of your personal taste. That has nothing to do with you saying, I think that GVK or GXK is a better film. Me taking your as person statement in the best faith possible, that is what I assume they're saying at first. But if they then say, I think GXK and GVK are better made films or deeper films or anything of the sort, and they clarify, that is then when I'm like, so what do you mean by that? Explain yourself. Qualify your statements.
Yeah,
I think in the
agree.
Twitter post, they stated it was their personal like enjoyment, like they personally like GVK more.
Yeah, and we showed
So this
showed
is-
receipts for that.
So
you
this
did.
is I agree with Zim. I would add the extra caveat that yes, if you are in my friend group, you are in my friend circle, yes, you are allowed to like GXK. If you're a stranger, you are allowed to like it. However, we can't be friends, and if you try, I will find you.
Like, and the thing for me, and like I think this even extends even before the GVKs, before the GXKs,
Uh-oh,
before the
lost C.
Empire. We lost. You could say that you released a C-Man. But yeah, even before these two films, like there was the big contention where people were like, "Oh, you prefer 2014 to like a Toho film," and like the wars that ensued over that. I think that there's nothing new under the sun. Not much has changed. But yeah, everyone is entitled to like what they like on a subjective level. But if you want to talk about like the quality of certain films versus another and which films you think are better, that is a completely different discussion, which most people are not willing to take part in because any kind of credit. And we actually thought Gojin's stream it's the stocks on Gojin stream are up because we even discussed it there. Because like the guy who was like the objectivity and subjectivity videos, criticism is viewed as an attack for many people. So because of that, not many people are willing to actually discuss the quality of their favorite films versus others. And I think that I still don't like the like term guilty pleasure, but I think that like you can like something unironically, and even if it's bad, still like it. Those are not those are not like
Mutually exclusive.
intertwined with they're not mutually exclusive. So
You are entitled to be wrong.
you're entitled to be wrong.
Oh, by the way, I pretty much just refreshed, and yeah, I can hear you, Zim. For some reason, when you first showed up, and I guess when you first started talking about the whole subject matter about the Twitter quote unquote drama, like for some reason, like I could not hear you at all. Like it sounded like honestly, it was like dead silence. So there was like a good portion where I was like, where it's kind of sitting there awkwardly, going, "What's going on here?"
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but
no,
yeah,
like I'll be honest. Like I heard you say that you couldn't hear me, and I was about to say, "Can y'all hear me?" But I heard like Black and Vic respond to me, so I was like, maybe it's like a Shimo issue. But yeah, no.
That's weird. I had not that. Yeah, I don't think I've had that happen on my end before, where someone pops in and they're just like I can't hear. It's like it almost seems like they're not even talking. It was just like there's like it seemed like there was dead air on my end, but yeah, I fixed it.
Like I think there was one person on like Twitter who, in response to someone saying, "Before you ask, this is my genuine opinion," so they like GVK more than 54, and someone said you should be shot. Like that's kind of like if I was to say that to one of my friends, they obviously know that I'm joking. Kind of, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, like you say that to a random on the internet with how like weird everyone now is nowadays. I'm not surprised anyone would take that as an actual threat or them legitimately hating the person for that take. So I think that like Twitter's just gonna Twitter. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But then like I also think people like actually taking people who are obviously joking or being hyperbolic and then being like y'all are just babies about it is also patently ridiculous in my opinion.
Yeah.
What did you think of, since you didn't hear anything, Zim, and also just I might be leaving in a couple of minutes. What do you think overall about, why is this guy putting a fan inside a microwave? Anyway, what were your overall thoughts on the idea that Godzilla and Kong are not, at least I think so, but what are your thoughts on the idea that Godzilla versus Kong might not actually be mythically compatible? Like in terms of like myth making in that sense, because I don't think they're, on top of the fact that I don't think they're like a really good enough foil to each other. I don't think they're like, okay, maybe not mythically compatible, but there's not enough weight to the myth of Godzilla versus Kong to justify a confrontation between the two to begin with, and their confrontation is merely just meta and nothing more. Kind of like how you want to see your dad fight the dad of your bully, pretty much.
Yeah. So in that case, I would say that when it comes to the like starting from the original King Kong versus Godzilla, I don't think that there was a lot of mythical significance. And when I use the word mythical, I mean that there is a transcendental idea that can be overlaid onto the idea of King Kong versus Godzilla, even from the first film, because I think that what they wanted to do, and I would say that like King Kong versus Godzilla is one of the earliest examples of the my dad versus your dad type of movie, in the sense that it took two very famous monsters and pitted them together in a shared universe essentially to fight one another, because Kong is divorced from his origins in King Kong versus Godzilla, and Godzilla is now a third film out from his cultures and his thematic significance. And they are touching on a different kind of allegory and theme, but I think that because of the fact that the film was made for a wider audience, in the sense that it could be seen for kids, adults, and it didn't have the same darker tone of the original, but it also doesn't have the brutal spectacle of 33. The film is good for what it is, and that is have two famous movie monsters fight with a compelling story that is thematically relevant for the time that it was made. And then come Godzilla versus Kong, you have a film that takes the meta idea of King Kong versus Godzilla, but overlays it into the universe and story of the MonsterVerse. I think the problem is that because 2014 as a film and the beginning of the MonsterVerse and Godzilla's character in this universe, I don't think that Godzilla in the MonsterVerse has the same essentially clear thematic depth that he does have in 54. And as a result, there's a lot of overlay of different ideas of what Godzilla means due to this being so late in the series production overall. So everyone kind of has like, oh, I see 2014 is more like this Godzilla, while they see more like that Godzilla. Whereas in 54 or even 84 for that matter, Godzilla is brought down to his very basics, and then -1 does that as well. And with Kong, I would say this is the best you've seen Kong thematically, but I'd also say generally Kong character from 33 onwards has been a gradual softening of the character and has made the tragedy far more important rather than Kong being a movie monster. So you get a very sympathetic Kong, a kind of thematically confused Godzilla, and then you have the two fight in a story that doesn't leverage either of their thematic significance, and you just are there for the spectacle. And for a fight, it's a okay choreographed battle, but in terms of giving you a fight that has like an underlining like meaning to it, I really don't think that there is much there for either character, and it is further like it's not rectified further in GXK either. So
Yeah,
Do
like
you think that either one was flanderized in that sense?
I'd say Kong's like a completely different character from 33 or even 62 in my opinion. And I think that in a way that is a form of flanderization, but I also think Godzilla is kind of flanderized as well. So yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, like
Yeah, I
GVK,
generally
like it's GVK mainly just kind of like had the benefit of of essentially having like the novelty of in the meta of having Godzilla and Kong having a rematch essentially, even if it's obviously in a different universe from the Showa era. It is ultimately like, yo, how cool would it be if we got like an updated version of this fight between the two of the most iconic movie monsters like ever,
As
essentially.
opposed to like seeing like narratively, thematically, mythically, why is this significant? Like
Yeah,
that's the question
exactly.
that's not
It's
answered at all.
mainly just spectacle, really. It's like a essentially like a UFC pay per view match, essentially.
Yeah,
but with
that's
giant monsters, but with two fictional monsters, really. So,
that's
but
the problem with a
in the
lot of
meta,
versus films is that
yeah,
like they are just essentially viewed as pay-per-view fights and the story is viewed as a secondary part to that fight itself instead of
yeah,
leveraging the thematic depth of the character. But the other thing too is that even with like wrestling pay-per-views or UFC pay-per-views, you have these people and they're like legends, their stories intertwined in an interconnected universe, that universe being the circuit that they're fighting on, like their weight class and stuff. So you follow their journeys, you see their ups and you see their downs, and it all comes to a head in that pay-per-view fight. Whereas with these characters, you are coming in with a baggage of different interpretations and everyone's kind of perceptions and sort of hopes for how they're going to see this character be adapted. And ultimately that will impact not only how a creative is going to work on the film, but also how a fan will perceive the film too.
yeah. I mean, this isn't like GVK isn't anything like Captain America: Civil War, for an instance, where the story pretty much is kind of the primary thing that's focused on, and it ultimately leverages like being able to have like these the two iconic heroes in the MCU like facing off against each other, as well as like their respective teams, what have you, but in a way that actually kind of makes sense, that's been built up, over the years since each of like Iron Man and Captain America's first appearances. Like it was all built towards it. Whereas Godzilla versus Kong, it is mainly just like, aside from like some detail, some like just very like just kind of like the minimum of details in terms of like backstory between the two. Like it's just kind of like, it really is just what like an excuse to just like watch two big monsters fighting each other that haven't had a fight on the big screen like that since 1962. And I guess it's like that sort of like long period of time is what gave GVK the sort of novelty and that sort of hype, which unfortunately then you have like even that sort of concepts could be a bit flanderized now, because now we're just getting because like we're getting like three Godzilla Kong crossovers in in the 2020s essentially, because we had GVK and we had GXK, and now we're gonna have another GXK movie on the way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like
What would even be
the
the
novelty
for
is just
100 years,
the novelty is just kind of gone
Wait,
at this
wait,
point.
Yeah,
Vic, what did you say?
The novelty, I mean, like when I say but basically like we're gonna have like we have like three Godzilla Kong crossovers this decade in the 2020s.
No, that I did hear. That I understood. I didn't hear what Vic said. That
I
was
just
my
said GXK for 100 years.
question. Ew. I will not stand for 1,000-year, 100-year GXK Reich. Okay, I'm sorry. I will become the BJ Blazkowicz of this universe.
It's
like
saying like
if that's the case. Oh, go ahead.
It's like saying like, oh, I want to see like 100 Alien versus Predator movies. It's like, don't you think you want to like save something like that for like once every several years? Like it's just it just like the novelty factor. If you want, as such of that concept of two iconic characters clashing with each other,
And even
whether
then,
the
like I have
writing
to
is good or
ask,
not, aside, like the novelty would just be it would just be gone once you just kind of like run that sort of idea of the two icons fighting each other essentially like into the ground by making seemingly countless movies about that premise, as opposed to just kind of giving these characters each a solo movie so that they can breathe, without needing to cross over with the other.
I think
But
actually
even
when it
then-
comes to I was gonna say with Alien versus Predator, I think it has more flexibility than a Godzilla versus Kong continuous set of films, because the alien and the predator aren't a specific alien and a specific predator. And I think that's actually one of the problems I have with Romulus is the fact that Chappie's even in that movie. I didn't want Chap to be there. I didn't want him to have a connection to these new aliens. Same thing with Kane. I didn't want him there either. Same thing with like the Predator. The first Predator died. The first alien got flung into space. Cool. They are species, but they aren't like a specific icon in that sense. So like you can follow a different Predator clan. You can follow a different nest of aliens, and you can have them fight like on a different planet, encounter different cultures of people. You can have stuff with like the colonial marines versus like a prison planet. There is a lot more variety that you can do when it comes to these characters, because I think that even like as their archetypes, like the essentially like the ultimate life form of the parasites or the hive mind versus the hunter type of character, they work because of the fact that they are not individuals. And I think that that's why it's harder for like even horror movie icons to do their versus films, because they are individuals rather than like a species.
Even then, like I have to ask, like in terms of like a versus matchup, even if you wanted to wait that long to even get one, for one, wouldn't you want it to be narratively sound? And number two, what would be the inherent value of it beyond just whatever value you can assign to it? Because that's a bit of a distinction that needs to be made. Like there's one thing is it's valuable because you assign value to it, and another completely different thing is it is inherently valuable.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I get you. Like, I definitely would. Like, if you were to like, take time off from doing the crossover, I definitely do agree that it also does need to be narratively sound, as well. Like, definitely much preferably. It's just that, it's just that essentially, like, you just kind of like dilute. Like, you would just be dilute. The problem, like, what I was kind of suggesting is like, you would want to save those crossovers to be like special events, just kind of like waiting, just kind of like, as opposed to diluting it by just releasing crossovers constantly, which, considering that, like I said, the fact that we got that we're going to get like another GXK movie as being the next entry in the Monsterverse, it's just,
Yeah.
like,
And
all
then I
right,
would ask,
it
like,
seems like
the-
it's all
the
you
new one.
guys can really do. It's like it's either going to be Godzilla and Kong. Like at this point, like if they pretty much have it where Godzilla and Kong have to like have a brief tussle with each other, just only to team up again, just to stick with formula, it's like at that point it would just be like, fucking hell, guys, really?
And then I'd have to ask, like, what would be then the inherent meaning to even like what is the need? Why would we need the versus matchup to begin with?
Well, I think that's like the point of why they didn't call it Godzilla versus Kong something. It's now Godzilla X Kong, which I think that like, thank God, if they're gonna do this again, just don't have them fight. Like they should be over that, because I think that like, can you have these two specific characters be in a story that has some kind of thematic weight to it? Yes, but like it's going to be very hard, especially because it's so late into a cinematic universe and there's a lot of problems that have already been established beforehand.
Yeah.
For me, I
So
think
that
the
answer-
only thing I would
so that question
need is
can't be
like
answered then?
having
that
like a
question-
Hulk Buster versus Hulk fight like they did in the Age of Ultron. Like I think that kind of situation I think would be the only thing valid for me to see in a feature film down the line if you have them fight again.
Well,
that-
and it better not happen like the next film, because then it's like you literally introduce this plot point just so you can have them fight again.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's. I mean,
So-
it was already bullshit as it is when the way the new Empire had it, where the two of them had to fight. Two of them fought each other. Like, we don't need to see a repeat of that.
Mhm.
So is it
in the
not
next
possible
film.
then to answer that question? Like, what would make it? Because I wasn't actually trying to be rhetorical.
In terms of what?
Like the inherent meaning for a versus matchup, specifically Godzilla versus Kong.
In terms of
So,
this
like,
universe,
thematic.
or in general of thematics with Godzilla and Kong as characters? And then would be the next question.
Both.
Both. I would say, and I guess another question, another clarifying question. Would this be in the context of me making the like a supposed GVK, or being the one to piggyback off of it?
What do you mean?
So, because you're saying like what inherent or like what value is there in making a versus fight in the first place? And I said,
Yeah.
is it as like the characters in it all themselves, or in the context of the MonsterVerse? And you said both. And then my next
Yeah.
question is like, am I making this versus like this idea and the story idea, piggybacking off of a GVK that's already been made, or I have to then make a GVK?
Oh no, just making the GVK altogether.
Making GVK as a movie.
Yeah.
Okay. I would say generally when it comes to Godzilla's Godzilla's thematic character, when he's at his best is when he is the product of humanity's hubris. Kong works best when he's antagonistic to humans, but he has a soft spot for a human. I think also if Godzilla and Kong have to fight, Kong's story has to change as well, because at least in the case of Godzilla, with how they set it up, it's possible for another Godzilla to appear. It doesn't need to be the same one. Where with Kong, it's always kind of built up that he is the last of his kind, even with Soda Kong being a thing. But I think that Kong naturally is more protective, more reasonable to contend with when it comes to humanity versus Godzilla. So essentially, you're dealing with two characters that are originally man versus nature, and now one of the nature aspects has to fight against the other. I think that ultimately Godzilla, in my opinion, to be the most thematically satisfying, needs to be the antagonist, because he is the creature born from a messing with science, and I think that's core to his character. And as when it comes to having the two creatures fight, I think that in most cases you do have to get Kong off of his island some way, shape, or form. How you do that, I'd really have to like hammer down what I think would be satisfying in that sense. And I think that generally the only way to get Kong motivated enough, I think, to really fight Godzilla is for Godzilla in some way, shape, or form to directly harm characters that Kong cares about, which then means you have to write for Kong. And that's what allows Kong to fight Godzilla. I think that's what I think justifies the fight. I think Godzilla just having natural antagonism towards humanity is always going to happen in a film where he is the antagonist. So Godzilla's villainous angle always kind of writes for itself in most cases. And I think that ultimately, even though like a lot of people say that they hate when monsters are saved by humans, I think humanity teaming up with Kong to beat Godzilla in some way, whether it's Kong doing most of the work and humanity doing something to stop Godzilla, is ultimately, I think, what is thematically relevant. So it is essentially nature in its most natural state, if we're going to assume that Kong is a product of just natural evolution fighting a man-made abomination, which is Godzilla.
I think Black Rooney said he was gonna be right back.
Okay.
For me, in terms of GVK, I always saw the thematic elements with the characters as being one of pride versus hate, and how they get in the way of each other's goals.
Weighing GVK.
Yeah,
Kong, I assume, is pride. Godzilla is hate.
yeah.
Well, hate. What I'd assume. What do you mean by hate then?
Like he has a hate towards Kong due to being part of the species that drove him away from Hollow Earth and had the war.
Well, except for the fact that there was only one tribe of apes that wasn't all the great apes, which is like that's the problem, is that GXK says that it's not like every single great ape, whereas Godzilla seems to have like a natural antagonism towards all of them, because there's all the Kongs that were on Skull Island prior to GXK, so Godzilla should know that, or at least have some understanding between the distinctions between the two.
Yeah, just basing it off of GVK, there's like so little. There's like really not enough information to like infer that it's just a specific group of apes that ruined it all for all apes. You know, in terms of relations with Godzilla. That's a retroactive thing that kind of comes in.
Yeah,
I guess you could say that. I always saw it as the Scar King was the one who led the apes.
But where was that in GVK?
As well as,
it was
again, it
still a
wasn't all
mystery.
the apes. That's the other thing too, is that it wasn't all the apes that teamed up together to fight Godzilla. It was a particular subset of the apes that fought against Godzilla. But then, if we're to assume that Scar King led all of the apes, then that kind of makes Godzilla sort of justified, because that means Kong is part of that legacy of Titans that are susceptible to being essentially controlled by someone like Scar King.
Yeah,
Like, I would say
me,
that, because
There you
I was gonna say that, like, with what you have in the Monsterverse, really, Kong should, in a way, kind of be the antagonist of the movie, because all in all, Godzilla is doing the right thing because he's hunting down the remnants of Ghidorah, whereas Kong just so happens to be in his way. Godzilla shouldn't even really care about Kong, and Kong should be the one picking these fights, because I don't see why the Kongs would have any antagonism with Godzilla's species. And considering like the massive power difference between like Kong and Godzilla in terms of their abilities, it doesn't even really seem like a fair fight between alphas. Like, you could say the same thing about like I would say honestly, some of the other monsters that aren't even alpha titans deserve that alpha status more than Kong does in terms of like their abilities, if they were given the same amount of power that Kong has just physically.
Yeah.
Like, if anything, the Mutos are more like alpha rivals than Kong is. But then that's also
I would
a
say in some
problem
ways
too.
that's true.
And then another problem too is the fact that in 2014, because they were going for a more grounded, evolution-based like world, the Mutos and the Godzillas had a natural arms race with one another, and it seems to have hit that dead end where Godzilla's species developed the atomic breath, which is their long-range weapon, while the Mutos have the EMP. And although it's not shown in the film, the whole intention behind it was to have the EMP essentially mess with the atomic breath on some like level.
Yeah, and not to mention not to mention the fact that the Mutos even like they have like this parasitic thing going on where they, like, the Mutos that were born in 2014 in the Philippines, they pretty much were planted in essentially a member, like, I think they just implied that it was like another member of Godzilla's species, because they wonder like, is it him? And Serizawa was like, no. You know, so it's like, so there is like already this thing where the Mutos, you know, would primarily sort of impregnate, you know, a Godzilla species member, you know, to do their thing essentially.
And then Ghidorah also has a sort of natural back and forth with being around the Godzilla. We have like sea, air, space, earth, blue, yellow. There's a natural dichotomy that forms between King Ghidorah and Godzilla. Or with King Kong and Godzilla, it's not really there. And again, the only reason why it has such a mythical status is because they're two famous movie monsters.
Yeah, Ghidorah is actively, in the context of the Monsterverse, is actively trying to take control from Godzilla over a planet that he did not originate from. He is actively invading Earth, you know, to take over, and Godzilla is the one that's trying to keep that from happening.
And then
whereas Kong is just minding his own business.
Yeah. I think Shimo can also fit that rival aesthetic as well, like pink and blue, fire and ice, bipedal, quadrupedal. But like Shimo is so underdeveloped as a character that there really isn't much there. Not to mention the fact that Shimo is literally just a big dog. She really doesn't have too much character or agency of her own. So it really
like,
mostly
what do we-
between Scar and Godzilla, which again is just Kong versus Godzilla again, but in the
With-
past.
Back.
Welcome, Black.
Guess who's black?
Black
What
again.
little that we get of Shimo in terms of characterization, once she has her agency back, she pretty much doesn't even seem to care about it. Like, even if she were to be considered like potential
Free.
alpha titan status, when
She
she's
doesn't
like
even
freed
care about
from
her freedom at all.
wait, hold on, I'm not done yet. Even when she's freed from Scar King, like, even if you could say she has alpha titan potential, she, like, what little we get of her after she's freed from Scar King's control, she's just kind of like, like, doesn't really care all that much. She's just like, all right. It's like, all right, whatever. All right, finally,
She's
I'm
a
free.
dog.
Thank God.
Yeah, she's really just a dog.
Yeah, and also, Zim, two things. Number one, the thing about which you mentioned about the Mutos disrupting the Godzilla's atomic breath. Yes, it's not in the movie, but the movie doesn't really seem to behave as if that's the case, because the EMP is still in place, yet Godzilla is still able to use atomic breath.
Yeah, I'm not saying that that is the case in the movie. I'm just saying that, like, when it comes to the intentions of why they designed things the way they were when it came to the Muto's breath, or their like ability,
I mean,
that's what the point of it was. And I think that, like, if you really, because the whole point was to make them rival species to one another, that should have been something they brought over. Whereas with Kong, you really can't pull anything, even from the external material, that makes Kong specifically have that same weight to his rivalry with Godzilla.
And
Yeah,
the
I mean-
second thing that I wanted to say is also exactly that. Like, it's not that Kong was in his way. The people purposefully put him in Godzilla's way. You see that in King of the Monsters, the location of Skull Island was retconned. And then you see in GVK, they say that they're avoiding Godzilla's territorial waters, but according to the map in King of the Monsters, the Tasman Sea is Godzilla's territorial waters. So they're traveling a further distance just to get onto Antarctica, when all they'd have to do is just travel south. But no, they're actively going through Godzilla's territorial waters. When I first saw that detail, I was absolutely floored, because I've seen the movie several times, and I just went with the notion that, oh, Godzilla, the entire ocean is Godzilla's territorial waters, so it wouldn't even matter if he had territorial routes. But no, GVK is actively going out of their way to do that.
In all fairness, the routes show that he goes all over all of the oceans.
Yeah, so then, like, that makes that whole point of trying to avoid Godzilla's territorial waters even sillier. That's then the new problem that arises.
Yeah, the whole world is his territory. Like, the whole world is his oyster. Like, at that point, Godzilla could just be like, "Yo, what's going on?" And he could just like. Here's the thing: they have in the GVK GXK thing, they hadn't even they. It's not like they retconned the whole like tunnel things, like what King of the Monsters had, like, out of existence per se. Like, that could he could just easily be like that's how he was able to get from point A to point B as quickly as he did in King of the Monsters. So who's to say that those things still wouldn't potentially exist in this universe by this point, unless they were to just confirm it?
Not to divert too much, but Joe Smo said, "Big stupid dog." Now I'm just imagining Shimo as Courage and Eustace as
dog.
Star King. It's like,
Kong.
"Stupid dog, you made me look bad." Instead of the mask, it's just the crystal.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Before I go, because I do need to go, Vic, what are your overall thoughts on everything we've discussed so far?
Well, I think
You
all
got
your
blacked.
takes
You've been blacked.
I guess so. But I think, like, I get where you're coming from with a lot of the stuff regarding like for instance, in the case of like the thematic weight of having the characters meet and fight, like, I get where you're coming from. Personally, I would say I take enough value in just having them be there and fighting and seeing any story with them is enough value for me. Like, I can have my own personal opinions on how well the story is done, or how much I like the story. Um, it would be a case by case basis, but I personally take a lot of value in just having the concept of Godzilla versus Kong, Alien versus Predator, Jason versus Freddy. Like having the concepts themselves, I think I take a lot of value in it.
Also, it's so you just take it. It's not that there's actual inherent value.
I guess so, because I think I see the value in that.
Hmm.
Like, there's a difference. I agree in the sense that there's a difference between having this thematic story to tell about these two specific characters, as opposed to a story that has them there just to fight. And I think you can have either or and still be well executed. Um,
I mean,
to
and I guess at that point we would just beg the question of like, what would they have to do so that you'd be like, hey, this is not executed well, then, because
Yeah,
we have
because
to
I
like
don't
draw a
think in
line
your
somewhere.
worldview, is even possible, excluding La La Land. That doesn't count. That's a musical. I don't think it could be even possible to even have a good movie, in like a bad movie. I mean, it's impossible to
Yeah,
have it
I mean,
because, like, do you think a bad movie would just be a black like a blank screen for 2 hours where you can't see anything? Because like a lot of the positives that you had specifically review GXK was just we can see what happens and we can comprehend what happens. And so I'm just wondering, is a bad movie just a blank screen for 2 hours?
I would argue, yeah, but I also think that there's like also like you can have plot holes in something like, and that makes the film like I see films that have plot holes as it's not that well written. Like I think Kung Fu Panda 4 is a badly written movie.
Well, I'm just asking because like a lot of the time it almost seems as if like it whatever plot holes you might find, it might just be that it's less of a revelation and more of just agreement of whatever points we might have against certain movies. So that's why
Yeah,
I'm asking.
I think so. I would say that's accurate because for me, a lot of times, um, I can agree to something, but it also just personally doesn't make me like. For one, it doesn't make me upset. It doesn't make me mad at the film. It doesn't make me. Sometimes it doesn't make me like the film less. Like for instance, as I mentioned, Kung Fu Panda. See, I like that film less because of the plot hole. I think it was very easy to write something else that'll make that film, good on a baseline.
Because I think
Um,
constantly reminding people that, oh, I still like the movie though, I just find it redundant a bit. That's all.
mm,
Like
fair,
even if you acknowledge the plot holes, like constantly reminding yourself, oh, I do like the movie. It it feels redundant, you know.
yeah. Because for all honesty, like this is not a knock against anyone, but when I hear some of the either nitpicks, genuine complaints, or any criticisms, sometimes I ask myself, like, why is that bothering you? That's sometimes what something I ask myself.
Mm, in the case in my case, and this is with this I'll leave because I do need to go. It's just that I
Mhm.
just value truth, you know, and so I value coherence. And in a world, especially in my life in particular, where I'm just surrounded by incoherence, just trying to cling to the last semblance of coherence that I could find in fiction, because my life is not exactly the most coherent, and I'm surrounded by people constantly that don't think the most coherently. So just seeking that in movies is like a form of escape. So whenever coherence is violated, causality is violated, logic is violated, it feels like an affront to me. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes. So that's why it particular bothers me, especially if I'm expecting it to be good. Like GVK, like
Mhm.
part of the reason why I hate GVK so much, like I said, it felt like I was being betrayed. It felt like a betrayal, um, because I expected the movie to be good and it wasn't. So
Mhm. I
that's
agree.
also why I hate Adam Wingard's approach, because he just keeps doubling down.
well, you double down to GXK. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
Hopefully, Grant Couture, considering he's taken over for Wingard, he won't do that. I
Yeah.
hope.
Anyway,
We'll see.
I do have to go. So I
All
thank
right.
you all for having me. Y'all
Thank
know
you for
where to
coming on.
See you, dude.
y'all know where to
Boy.
find me. And I think I might actually purge my Twitter, for for certain reasons,
No, I need the
involving
receipts to expose you.
money. What else? I made a meme video. I posted it in the server, not the link, but the actual file. So if you want it, if you want the meme format, I can send it. It's a very light file, and yeah, I'm gonna go. Nice being here. I might not be Zim. I might not actually be join your podcast next time. Particularly, mostly because I don't have much to say on the subject, but I don't think
Yeah,
I'm gonna
no,
be
I
able
was
to.
gonna probably do that. This coming up stream is like a solo, and then I'm gonna be planning on some
What?
streams for groups again, and then I have several Godzilla unscripteds I'm gonna be working on, plus the Rodan video that I still need to like it's finished, it's written. I just now need to edit up the rights and then start recording.
Right. Okay. All right. So yeah, thank you again. GVK sucks. I demand reparations. Read Berserk. Watch Invincible, and I will black you all later.
Peace out, man.
I will eventually get around to reading Berserk. I just want to try to finish some other stuff.
What a black.
Yeah.
Zim,
right
what do you
now-
think of the matchup between Gandalf and Guts?
Gandalf versus Guts.
Yeah.
Are we talking like Gandalf as in like Gandalf as Anatar or not Anatar, Roland? I think I'm saying that name wrong, but like Gandalf's actual like like Valar form, or are we talking about Gandalf as just like Gandalf, Wizard Gandalf?
I'm not sure, honestly. I mainly asked because Baccaruni said that both Berserk and, as far as I remember, he said Berserk and Lord of the Rings were both legendary in terms of writing and stuff.
Oh, but like, are you asking me like who would win in a fight between them, or are you just asking like what I think is a better written character?
A little bit of both, but who would win in a fight, I guess.
So I would say that in terms of physicality, actually, that I really am very bad when it comes to like scaling Lord of the Rings, because you can wank it really high, but if I like going off my gut intuition, I would say that like in a purely physical fight, Guts beats Gandalf, not in a narrative fight, but in terms of in like a universe, like if you're in the Lord of the Rings universe, Guts just popped out there and had to fight Gandalf, more than likely Eru would be involved in some way, shape, or form that would allow Gandalf to pull off the win. Or it could be all part of Eru's plan and Gandalf loses. So I would probably like my money kind of goes towards Guts, but I think that there are certain logic trains that you can get Gandalf to being above Guts. So yeah, so like I think Gandalf probably wins due to cosmology. But like in terms of just Gandalf's physical power on like the plane of like Middle Earth and stuff, I still think Guts probably wins.
Very nice.
I guess it just kind of boils down to like, can Guts kill the Balrog without dying right afterwards?
I think the Guts, Guts with the Berserker armor, I think could beat the Balrog, because the Dragon Slayer at this point has been able to cut things on the astral plane. So if it can harm something like Ganishka, and I think Ganishka.
Well, the question I asked is like, can he kill the Balrog without dying? Because Gandalf did die right after defeating the Balrog.
I would say yeah.
Okay.
Now this is power scaling.
Now this is
this. Have you watched the newest Death Battle yet?
Who's it between?
Kyle Rayner from DC Comics.
Oh,
yeah, from Gurren Lagann.
I saw it. I'm not super big into Gurren Lagann, and I'm not a big fan of Kyle Rayner. I think he has a cool name, but he's not my favorite Green Lantern. It's either Hal Jordan or Jon Stewart. Guy Gardner's a funny clown, and I love him to death. But yeah, no, like I just wanted to see who won, and that was about it. It wasn't even like I'd say the last death battle I watched in its entirety because I was interested in the video, who won, and then how they came to that conclusion was Doom Guy versus Master Chief, and like obviously Doomslayer won, but yeah, like I saw the clips, I watched some of the fight, and then I just kind of skipped to the end, and then I forget who was announced next.
Tomcat versus Wile E. Coyote.
Yeah, that one I'm probably not gonna see. Like, fun characters, but like, I don't know, that just has no interest to me.
I mean,
The
they've
thing
also
is, though-
they've announced that they're going to be doing Godzilla versus the Hulk later down the line. So
That one I'm interested to see because there is the new Godzilla versus the Marvel Universe, and Godzilla and Hulk have already crossed paths. So
yeah,
I'm curious to see like how
that
they come
I'm
to
very
conclusion.
interested to see how they factor, especially considering a lot of Godzilla's other crossover stuff.
Yeah.
Now, the question about the rules and stipulations about Tom the Cat versus Wile E. Coyote, like, are they, like, it makes me wonder, like, are they going to go with the rules that one of them, that they both have the capacity to, have one kill the other, essentially? Because if we just go by cartoon rules, then it's like, neither of them can really lose or win because they just don't die no matter how crazy.
That's why I have like no interest in Toon Force characters fighting, because it's like you have to like stretch the rules of what those characters can do. So like I don't know. Toon Force battles I think are always stupid, and I have no interest in like seeing anyone like power scale. I think that like the value I find in like people analyzing Toon Force characters' feats is because since they do crazy stuff already, seeing how like theoretically powerful they are based on those feats is always fun to see. It's like SpongeBob is so powerful because he's able to do this, and that. But like actually being like, oh, who would really win in a fight? It's usually going to be a Toon Force character because they do crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Mm.
Also, Alice, to answer your question, I am rooting Godzilla here.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I think it could go either way. I don't buy a lot of the arguments for the Hulk, especially considering what Godzilla has done. But yeah.
And
I think
to
that, like,
answer your,
I was gonna say, like, no, you're good. I'm rooting for Godzilla. I think Hulk's winning. I feel like any of the DC or Marvel characters, Death Battle does like for some reason, any of those characters get ranked super hard in any of their death battles. So I'm thinking Hulk's probably
With the
winning.
exception of Kyle Rayner. God, that was beautiful.
Yeah, I think that literally, I think in the case of like Kyle, he's like the third, fourth, fifth string Green Lantern. Like I know there's fans of Kyle Rayner, but like most people think of like Hal or Jon Stewart. Like I think that Ben should have beaten Hal. So
I disagree. I think Hal has a lot more arguments going for him. I do think that episode was really poorly explained.
Yeah, and
or like
I guess,
Omni-Man versus Bardock, that was embarrassing.
Yeah, even I'll admit that was stupid.
So what was the chat earlier that Alice said? Like, what about a film that has visuals and no sound? Because I did want to like respond to that myself. It's like, well, I mean, by that logic, a film with visuals but no sound, that's basically, okay, here it is. What if it's a movie with visuals and no sound? Well, that would just be a silent film, like after like the original Nosferatu or like any film with Lon Chaney Sr., like the Phantom of the Opera, Hunchback of Notre Dame. Like that's like those kinds of things already exist, really. At that point, you would just stick with like visual storytelling, really. Just kind of like watch the screen in terms of like the expressionisms of the actors and what have you, conveying what's going on, what they're feeling, and so on and so on. So yeah.
I would say that like that's either like a proto silent film, because unlike Alice mentioned, Primal is essentially like that, but I assume that her question was that, like, what if it's a movie with visuals and like no sound, so it's not even like external sound that's adding to the scene. So like
Well-
that'd be even like that'd be like the early silent films that had like nothing added to them at all. And
Yeah,
just the
that's what I
visuals.
was. That's what I was talking about. Like those
Oh.
things already kind of exist.
Well, because like the Lost World, Nosferatu, those had like music added to them for like effects. So that's why
Okay.
that's what I was like
Yeah.
making the distinction
All
there.
right.
But
Okay. Oh, right. Okay. So these are like really, 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 really early. So I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, those do technically. Those you can still technically make that a movie, and it would, I guess, essentially sort of fulfill, like as long as there is a story there, like because storytelling isn't just limited to like oh it's visuals with no sound or sound with no but with no visuals or even just like it. There's also like storytelling is just kind of a thing that that you can do regardless of like whatever technique or medium you go with.
or
Like
Krabby
a
Patty
film,
with no pickles.
right? Right, yeah, that too.
I think we've officially ran out of things to talk about.
I mean, like I would have to like go through like the last 3 hours and be like, oh, I want to address this, and that.
Can we talk about Gramuglia right now?
Sure.
So,
Like all I have to really say about it is that like I'm interested to see what he'll say on his Tuesday live stream if he actually does talk about the topic.
oh yeah, I'm gonna keep.
I'm not gonna watch it. I'll have someone else watch it, and if like it's important, like if they mention us, then I'll have to watch it. But like at this point, I'm like, he's probably not gonna bring it up, so is what is.
And and you obviously saw Cianimus's video, like you.
That was good. I love that.
That was great, dude.
Yes.
Dude, that was fantastic.
I'm kind of sad I wasn't directly involved with the stream because I want to be included in the drama. But now I get to watch from the sidelines. Make videos.
In this case, it's debatable whether or not you really needed to. Like,
I mean,
I appeared in the Cianimus video. I was there in the corner.
Yeah, you had a wonderful little cameo. Who?
no, you were no, Vic, you were the person you were with the cheerleaders. You were with Lau and Hoshi and everyone else on the sidelines, speaking commands and chanting in our favor.
yeah.
Such a lust for revenge. Who?
Yeah.
That's one thing I'll have to do on one of these days is if Anthony's ever brought up again, or if I cover another Anthony video, I'll have to do a quick one where it's just my face over skull face, where it's like such a lust for slop. Who?
God, I completely forgot about that joke until Animus brought it up.
Yeah, that was the first Gramuglia stream.
Yeah, or what that might be what I put on the Chibi's M shirt. It's just who.
Yeah.
Because I can't put "I will kill you" on a shirt.
It's such a good print, though. It's like it's perfect.
Beautiful.
What would you say is like a good takeaway from the drama that's been happening lately in terms of like the kaiju community and all around like just the drama of it all? What's a good takeaway?
It's still wrong.
I would say when it comes to any of these dramas, the best thing I can take away from them is that you actually get to see people like prominent names say something one way or the other in some cases, and then you actually kind of get a beat on what it is they're actually saying because it's their words, not your interpretation of what they're saying. So that's useful in some cases. Plus, like, I think that sometimes you're able to get a beat on the zeitgeist of what's going on in the community at one time or another. Along with, I think that generally these kinds of dramas are indicative of the people who are like on these sites, because sometimes these dramas always attract the same people on certain sites, so you always see the same faces from time to time, and that will change whether you're on like DeviantArt, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, YouTube, Instagram, etc. So I think that like it's a litmus test for like what people in the fandom are thinking at one given moment.
Yeah, and I guess as far as like this particular drama, in terms of like which one's better, 54 or GVK, I don't know. Maybe like for myself in particular, I'm just like I hear about that, didn't hear about it until I heard about this stream happening. But it's like, I mean, I guess from just looking at it, it's like I obviously have my stance on it, but for the most part, I'm just like, whatever. I got other shit to do.
Yeah. I mean, taking down Italians was our priority. Well, Italian.
Yeah.
That was our bigger priority.
Well, I mean, taking out that particular Italian, I mean,
yeah, because I don't know. I'd rather somebody give their subjective criticism, their subjective take, because like that's perfectly fine. But when you start spreading misinformation and start lambasting people and then proving their own point and blah bitty bloop, yeah, now we're gonna have words.
Yeah. It's one thing to just be like, hey, look, I just like GVK more than 54. It's like, all right, that's one thing. But when you're someone like Gramuglia, who is like such a pompous asshat, who thinks he's objective, but he doesn't know what the meaning is actually, he's just, then that's annoying, essentially.
Yeah,
I think the thing for me,
Mr. It's silly because Mr. It's silly because the premise is silly. I fucking hate that argument. Vitriolic. It's so I want to strangle everybody who says that.
The thing too is that he is so insulated by his community and the other creators that he runs with that I don't think that he genuinely will take like any criticism that he gets to heart. I think the only criticisms that he will get are anything where it's on a technical level, because that's criticism that you can take and no one can really dispute on that, because that actually is a cut and dry, very easy way to be like, you are uninformed on this. Here is some way that is just out and out better. Whereas there's a lot more at stake when it comes to his opinions on certain topics, when it comes to culture, movies, stuff like that, to where I don't think that he's capable of actually changing his mind on those things. So yeah, it is what it is, and that means that we'll have more content to talk about when it comes to him, because obviously he's not going to really change his mind.
Yeah, he's not going to stop.
I remember I mentioned Gogala in the stream. I'm going to keep an eye out if he drops a video about Gogala. Like, if for some godforsaken reasons finds any need to talk about that movie, I will find you.
I'm not even sure he's even cultured enough to even know what that is.
I think honest to God, he probably might stumble across it and then just make a video about it regardless. For whatever reason.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, yeah.
We will see.
But yeah.
All right. I guess we've all said our piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Then I guess I'll just leave the floor to you guys one by one if you want to shill anything out before I close out the stream tonight.
All right. I guess I'll go first. And then I'll head out. So basically, find me Sea Monster Essays on YouTube, Sea Monster or JCI on Twitter. As far as like what I have going on, since my channel reached 300 subs, sorry about the bottle, 300 subs, which means at some point in the very near future, hopefully very near future, I'll be doing a stream on Local Tunes GXK New Empire video, as I promised. It's just a matter of scheduling and timing and what have you, but it is coming. It is coming soon. As far as videos I am working on, currently doing scripting for my Nosferatu 2024 video. Hopefully that will be done in October or by the end of the year. Just kind of, life and what have you, and being busy, so on, outside of YouTube. It's kind of not the easiest to find time to work on it, but hopefully it won't be too long. But yeah, as far as recommendations, go watch Gojira 54 as an example. Go watch Nosferatu 2024 as another example. As far as things that are more recent releases, you know what? You folks go ahead and check out Ballerina, I guess. Considering that's it's the John Wick spinoff, I would say. It's a fun one, especially if you've seen the other films. It's pretty much more or less delivers on that. But yeah, this has been Sea Monster. See you all later. Good night, folks.
All right. Oh, new format for StreamYard. I didn't even realize. So you can find me on YouTube as Minecraft World 1954. That's my @ or just Minecraft World. I have different videos up, and I am working on other videos, such as a Nemesis essay animatic for my GXK sequel pitch, and a Gamera 60th anniversary project that I might start recording tomorrow. So yeah, you can also find me on Instagram. I have been drawing a lot recently, so I have a lot of new things there. You can see them there, as well as on, well, I need to transfer my stuff to Kara, but I have artworks there too. And also on Blue Sky, I am doing stuff, so yeah. Also, for recommendations, go watch the original How to Train Your Dragon. I don't exactly recommend the remake, but it's good. You can watch it if you want. Read Project Nemesis. Tiamat deserved better. Bye.
Alrighty, Zim.
Yep, so you can find me Zimzilla99 almost anywhere. Just add an OG in front of it if you're on Twitter. You just add a YT behind it on PlayStation. But outside of that, just Zimzilla99. Become a patron if you're being super generous. You'll see updates as to my novella, Kaiju Quarantine, along with another book project that I'm working on that I just got the copy of that, and I'm going to start doing some copy editing for that, which will come down the line. And when that's at a significant point of advertising, I will start shilling that out, and that'll be very fun. And I think it'll be very useful for people in the kaiju community. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, again who stopped by. You can always find me here on the Kaijunaut channel. We'll be talking more about kaiju-related stuff. Maybe I'll become a kaiju drama commentator. And then some upcoming stuff I do have. I'm planning an upcoming drawcast with Hoshi to feature more of his stuff. And then even more stuff down the line for any other artists who want to hop on and feature some stuff. With that, include you guys again, because I've had you guys on for previous drawcasts to show off your stuff. So I'm probably going to be doing more of that. And then reaching out to some other people as well to do some other adjacent things when it comes to just stuff I'm interested in, getting stuff out there. So thank you everyone who joined. I guess Alice wanted to do this. Awesome. Nice way to end off the stream tonight. Thank you all Kaiju Seekers who joined. And then I did recently just hit 380 subscribers. So thank you all again for that. Check out everyone who was on the stream today. The good people. Great stuff. And have a good night, everyone. Peace out. Till next time.
Just give it a